What is up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to another 3.5 hours nonstop NFL DFS conversation, taking you all the way up to kickoff. We're officially in double digits on the back half of the season. It is week 10. Myself, TastefulTides, Tim Buell, single entry specialist, 3-entry max specialist, and one of the greatest DFS players in all of Saskatchewan, Canada. You got TJ Zwarich up at the ridiculous hour of 7:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning out there in Saskatoon, I believe. Please feel free to confirm or deny. Always camera ready. TJ Zwarich, multitasking, producing, on-air talent at the last second. TJ, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, feeling for Bobby today. He goes out, gets a brand new camera, and it's still not working. So he's got some computer things to sort out. But we're here. We're ready. I'm thankful it's 8:30 now after the daylight saving switch because Saskatchewan doesn't change. We're like Arizona. We just we stay the same and adapt to the other time zones. So Eastern time used to be 2 hours later than me. Now it's only 1 hour later than me. And so instead of the 7:30 start, we got the 8:30 start. So it's a lot nicer and easier to wake up for.
Do want to say what's up to the chat as well. Shout out to everybody hanging out in the chat. Do hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn those notifications so you know when we go live. I see J3, the first comment. We need Dean to make this slate more manageable for us. Well, I'm going to pass that responsibility on to you guys because, good Lord, I thought it's a little bit better.
Please don't, Dean. Don't do that to us.
Tim, this is why you're the analyst and I'm just a dopey host. I can just get
I
don't know the answers. I have no clue what the answers are. I can just go ahead and ask you guys, and it's all of a sudden your job. And then I can criticize. That's a terrible answer. What's your answer? I don't know. Just the host. Just asking questions. It's your job. You're not getting better answers. It's the cap is Tuco levels of tight. It's a very, very tight cap today. Let me know in chat. Your favorite, like, I don't know, what's the cutoff point? Like 4-3 and under player, receiver, basically. Is that a good number to pick? Should we go even lower than that? It's pretty gross. It's pretty gross out there. And of course, the slate is smaller, right? More teams on bye. We have a terrible, speaking of gross, the Carolina Panthers and the Giants are playing some semblance of football right now in Germany. So that game is not in the main slate. We do have an extra game on FanDuel. FanDuel, of course, is including the Detroit-Houston game. Should mention, sort of tricky if you're playing that game on FanDuel. Nico Collins officially questionable. Tank Dell expected to play. We are getting CMC back this week. Trevor Lawrence, of course, is not playing. He's getting receivers back where he would be, but Mac Jones is getting those receivers. Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas, both expected to be good to go. If you're a season-long person, what are you doing here? But hey, happy to have you. But yeah, Tyreek Hill, we know he's questionable for Monday night. Drake London left the game early last week. He's expected to be good to go today. I mentioned CMC, also Debo, good to go for San Fran. So almost fully. So, you're not going to get Ayuk back anytime soon. He might be, I think he's up for the season, right? Pretty sure he is. All right. One game in the 50s, San Fran and Tampa. Otherwise, everything else in the 40s and the 30s. I did pull up Ross weather report as well. Nothing really alarming, but just of note. We have wind in Chicago. It's officially yellow, green yellow in Washington, yellow in Jacksonville, some possible on-off rain stuff. I imagine he will update this at some point. But this is what we have right now. I'll go ahead and drop it in chat. Tim, am I overreacting? Am I being a baby? Am I being a child? Do I want to just pick them? I think there's a happy medium somewhere. The cap kind of stinks this week. Would you agree with that? Is it not? I just don't like where it's at. Maybe we're all dealing with the same puzzle pieces, but I don't like my lineups. I was building some shell stuff, and there's at least one player where you got to hold your nose when you're clicking. You tell me, do you feel differently?
Not really. I mean, the cap is really, really tight this week. Not a lot of screaming, strong values. I think there are a couple of cheap wide receivers that we can get to in GPPs and in cash games. But generally speaking, you are right. This is a pretty tough slate when it comes to the salary cap. And I think it's a pretty tough slate when it comes to the games overall. Just because I think, some of these, implied team totals, higher implied team totals in these games also have a little bit of blowout risk as well. So it's kind of I don't really know if some of these teams are going to be able to stay with the team that is favored. So it's kind of a difficult slate in terms of run backs as well. So it's a pretty tough slate overall.
getting one answer in chat. Maybe I wasn't clear. A bodyguard saying Ricky Pearsall 4,400. Yeah, sure. This is what I want to know. I want you guys to tell me in favorite. We're using that term liberally. Who's your favorite like receiver 4,400 or less? TJ, welcome to the show. How are you seeing today's slate? Do you agree? Do you like it that it's tight? It's more challenging. We're all dealing with the same pieces, and now maybe you don't have to score 230, 240, 250, maybe 200. Take some stuff down. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, your general assessment we'll dive in a second as far as overall the slate. But you have a 30,000 foot view. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I do enjoy that it's tight and difficult. I agree 100%. It is very tough this week. The value doesn't look great. I'm going like heavy on the cheap wide receivers in the Colts and Bills game. I was hoping Matt Collins was going to be a little sneakier when I was building my lineups last night, was still with the uncertainty around Amari Cooper. But now that we're projecting Cooper is out, the ownership is kind of bumping up for Matt Collins a little bit. Same with Adonai Mitchell in that same game. But those two for me really do just seem like the cheapies that open up everything. So I'm going quite heavy on that game specifically. I have a 20 entry max build and then a 3 entry max build. And in the 3 entry max one, I have Josh Allen as one of my quarterbacks, and I have Joe Flacco as another one. So I'm going quite heavy in that game.
So that's the game that I isolated too, is like the I don't want to say clear and obvious game stack. And like you said, the different injuries on both sides, Pittman being hurt, and you said Cooper most likely out. The rookie for Buffalo, I'm losing his name, Johnson, is that his name? Going to be out for several weeks as well. By the way, you're multitasking now, TJ. The spam is getting you early in chat. They're up bright and early with well, if you want to know where to stream the games, there's like 70 different messages in the chat that'll help you out. I wouldn't recommend clicking on those links. I don't know where it takes you. Probably a terrible idea. But that's kind of the game.
Most of the time, they don't actually even give links. Like the name NFL TBS, com. Like that's not a website. And then in the comments are usually just like 2 or 3 emojis. They don't actually do links. It's just strictly spam. Like I don't think it's a real streaming service. I think it's a spam service.
Yeah, I don't understand, but I don't know. And they're very persistent though, or whoever it is whoever's and they keep you on your toes for sure, TJ. Deleting all those nonsense messages there in chat. But yeah, that's the kind of the game I asked for it too. And I'm afraid that's the game that's going to get elevated ownership wise as well. I do want to dig into that, but I do also want to, we kind of lead off with cash stuff. Tim, cash game build today. I think it's another, like, there's not an official, like, for sure this is your quarterback. I don't think. You really want to get 3 running backs, I believe. Tim,
I don't know that that's the case today. If we're
2 tight ends, it's not receivers. You're talking 2 tight ends.
But I think best case scenario, you would love 3 running backs. But with the lack of salary we have today, I think 4 receivers or 2 tight ends might be a necessity with a lot of builds.
Oof. Okay. Well, that's why I said you really want 3 running backs. That's I made a point to say you want to ideally, because the running backs seem to be the best this week. You guys can tell me otherwise. That's kind of the way I see it. Tim, have you settled on a build? You kind of bouncing back and forth. You want to give me 2 or 3 or 4 players that are like for sure in your lineup? I think it might be Hopkins. Like they're talking about him in chats. He'd almost definitely be more money if he didn't, if his game was on Sunday. He had the pricing was already out and he went off with Mahomes there. He actually feels like a good price, which is a weird feeling this week. So I think that's one of the pieces you probably want to build around this week. The Indy stuff like Downs certainly elevates with the absence of Pittman. If you want a punt tight end, Otten's no longer really a punt, but if you can't get to him, Taysom looks pretty good with all the injuries in New Orleans. You tell me though, Tim, how are you seeing cash? Do you want to give me like an overview? Maybe some players you for sure are going to have, maybe this guy or that guy. What's the build looking like?
Yeah, so for cash games at quarterback, I'm stuck between Brock Purdy and Aaron Rodgers. I never thought I'd be considering Aaron Rodgers in cash games, but he's only 5.7K and he's playing the Cardinals, and he's got, really, really strong weapons to throw to. So that price is incredibly cheap. So for cash, at least, I'm stuck between Purdy and Rodgers. So one of those two are going to be in my cash game lineup. And then running back, and I think I'm pretty much like 100% playing Alvin Kamara even though he's very, very expensive. He's 8,100. But I mean, that team is just losing all of its weapons, and that game should be an incredibly fast-paced game. So I'm definitely playing Kamara in cash games. I'm kind of like, I do like Taysom Hill quite a bit. I also don't mind like punting tight end with like Juwan Johnson in that same game at 3.3K. So I don't necessarily mind him either. And then wide receivers, where I'm kind of having the most trouble. There's a couple of builds where you could just go like all mid-range guys. Like you could go like guys
Shakir,
like
Hopkins down.
Yeah, something like that. You could just go that entire like mid-range players, or you could see. I really like Justin Jefferson today, and I don't think he's gonna get played. That might be more of just like a single entry GPP play, maybe not a cash game play, but I really think Justin Jefferson absolutely crushes this week. So maybe you could do a Mac Hollins, Justin Jefferson, as like a pivot in your single entry versus your cash game, where you'll go like Downs, Shakir, Samuel, or something like that. You could just live in that, or Hopkins, like we talked about. Live in that 5.3K to like 6.3K range. I think wide receiver is kind of like the most difficult position this week overall, in my opinion, because there are a lot of good options, but like you said at the intro, Dean, not a lot of great cheap options that I'm super confident about. So I think in cash games, you should just live kind of like in the mid-range.
TJ, are you dabbling in the cash game stuff? And again, the Jefferson thing is wild because you don't really see us very often on such a big slate, right? 10 games on DK. His median projection, is 5 points higher, more than 5 points higher, actually, than the next guy at receiver. Like, you just don't, that is a huge difference. And there's reasons why. You can poke holes in some of these players, obviously. And, we've lost a lot of receivers along the way. RIP Olave as well, to so many injuries. Lamb certainly takes a hit with the absence of Dak. If you missed it, Dak's going to be shut down for the season. Dallas still buyers the trade deadline, which is hilarious, but whatever, different conversation. They're 2-6 or whatever they are. Yeah, I really want to get to Jefferson too. And like, especially we were showing right now just 10%. I don't know if that's going to be holding. I want to try to find a way to get more of him in tournaments because he certainly can beat everybody by 10 points. That's possible. And that's not necessarily a cash take. That's certainly that I'm talking more so for tournaments. T, did you have an official cash game take? Is this something you're dabbling? I know you're all over the place.
I'm not playing it personally, but I was looking at potential builds and kind of plugging in my core of favorite players today for that style of build. And I'm looking at it, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara at running back, just because I don't think I could afford Jefferson in that setting. But I want to make sure I get a piece of the Vikings. Josh Downs, Khalil Shakir, DeAndre Hopkins, Taysom Hill, Bears defense because they're 1 billion % owned today. And then it only leaves 5,350 for a flex and a quarterback. And so that's kind of the build I was talking about, where I think you might have to go 2 tight ends or 4 receivers. There are options like a Noah Brown, someone like that gives me a lot of nice options for quarterback range because it leaves me 6,400. So I can't quite go Purdy, but I could go Darnold or somebody like that. And so I think that's actually my favorite cash build today, is plugging in those 3 receivers, Downs, Shakir, Hopkins, picking your favorite cheap one and playing them with Kamara and Jones.
Let's see. Other Pop Douglas, so somebody was thrown out in chat from Joshua as far as a potential cheap receiver. Yeah, I don't mind Tim, I guess. You mentioned Noah Brown. Alan's talking about Noah Brown as well, but all that stuff is, terribly uncomfortable, and the floor is pretty low. Tim, on the New Orleans tight end situation, I know it's a little bit more money and every dollar matters, right? But I think Taysom is at least got a built-in floor that Juwan Johnson might not give you. You know what I mean? He's going to be touching the ball. I don't know, at least 7 times or something like that, right? And Juwan Johnson, maybe he gets 3 balls thrown his way, maybe. That's sort of where I want to get Hill. And of course, again, salary matters. And he's, you got to find $700. That's your team, TJ, by the way. Do you have any? So like life comes at you fast. You were feeling good. The Saints put up maybe 100 points the first 2 games of the year. They've now run off, I think, 7 straight losses. They ran off their head coach. Their pets' heads are falling off. It's not great in New Orleans these days. Do you have an assessment of this? Mason Tipton. We didn't even mention Mason Tipton. He's not even that cheap, actually. He's 4.5, which is not like a. Why is he 4? I know he's the quote unquote number 1 receiver, I guess, because somebody has to be. You got to give somebody that tag, but good Lord. Jermaine Jackson, MVS, Kevin Austin. These are real people that are going to be wearing uniforms today and playing football. Dante Pettis is another person that will be playing football today. 21 team total too. That's why Kamara, he had 35 touches last week. I'm a little bit concerned that he's going to. I like him in cash, but I'm probably going to be under on tournaments for what it's worth. He took a beating last week. He's been dealing with that wrist. I think is it still broken? He's still playing. They just signed him to extend him a couple more years. They're going nowhere. Do you want to give a state of the Saints, TJ, because they're kind of an important team on this slate?
Yeah, the Saints are in a really, really great position to hopefully have Shadur Sanders as at quarterback next year. Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill are the only guys I have any interest in whatsoever. I would probably want to have one of them on most lineups that I'm playing. I have one lineup that's a Bijan Robinson Falcons stack, but most of the other ones have either Taysom Hill or Alvin Kamara. Saints could get blown out. Saints could put up 14 points, 10 points, and Kamara could still have 30 because he has 50 on the ground, 80 in the through the air with 13 receptions or something stupid like that in this one. So Kamara, absolutely a cash option. I don't hate the idea of being underweight on him in tournaments, but if I am, I'd want to be making sure that I had Taysom Hill. All the rest of them, throw them away. Throw them away. Hit the X button. We're not playing them.
We have a 4-5 receiver, a 3-9 receiver, a 3-1. None of them. It's amazing. You don't care about any of these guys. It's so wild.
Gone.
It's so funny. And I know you don't like Derek Carr either, which I don't know.
I hate Derek Carr.
And yeah, you and Michael Thomas, not big fans of Derek Carr. And I'm sure
and Josh Olave, us 3.
Yeah,
Derek Carr's biggest haters.
Is there a chance he gets hooked in the middle of this game? Like if it's going ugly?
I mean,
not that you're playing. I don't think you're playing Carr.
Yeah. I don't think you're playing Carr.
Yeah, just kind of sort of asking in general. All right. So is there anything else we should say, big picture wise, before we dive in and talk a little bit of some of our favorite quarterbacks? I heard Rodgers being thrown out there. The Jets earlier in the week, a little bit less so now with some of the news flow coming in. But Garrett Wilson's going to be fairly popular. I think Devontae Adams will be popular to some extent. Breece Hall, the Jets in a dome this week at Arizona. I don't remember the last time Aaron Rodgers had a score you needed. Right, it's been 3 years probably. I think he said one usable score this year. I shouldn't say usable, but 20 last week, 21. That has basically been his ceiling. 18. I guess you're fine with that in this slate. You'll take 20 at 5.7.
Especially at 5.7, right? I mean, that's a completely viable score for that price tag.
Yeah, but he's got to basically do 3 touchdowns essentially. Because he's not really going to scoot these days. He doesn't run basically at all. No rushing touchdowns this season. But yeah, it's just kind of the nature of the slate. And have you guys considered? I guess I'll ask you, TG, if you want to start off with the quarterback stuff. I like Purdy as the cash game guy. All things considered. Just salary wise and all. And I like where San Fran's at. CMC should elevate that offense as well. And he might run one in, which would siphon one away from Purdy, but he's a big time threat in the passing game. I know its salary is so bad. People talk about Mac Jones. He at least has some good weapons. The weapons are back there for Jacksonville. Kirk obviously not coming back, but the other stuff is there with Thomas and Davis. I don't know if I'm that desperate for salary if I go to Mac Jones, but what is your assessment? as far as quarterback. And then like the same sort of conversation with Jefferson. It's like Josh Allen, he could put up 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 more points than every other quarterback. And he's not going to be owned because of salary reasons. It's not that people don't like Josh Allen. It's a good matchup. He's in a dome. He's got some cheap pieces. Very easy to work with him. He's just not going to be that heavily owned because salary concerns. How are you seeing quarterbacks, TJ? How big is your pool today?
Pool is quite big. I have been doing recently where for my 20 entry max lineups, I keep a really tight pool of running backs and then I kind of spread out different stacks. And so I have a bunch of similar teams that just have a different quarterback and receiving pairing throughout them. My favorite 3 for tournaments are Josh Allen. As gross as it is to say, and I hate it, I was rubbing it in on the Pick 6 show, talking about how I told you at the beginning of the season the Jets would suck. I was saying that like these guys aren't going to be putting up the record that we think they are. Maybe 500, maybe 7-9 type situation. Feel good about that, but I do like Aaron Rodgers today because of how great his receivers are projecting. And so my 3 tournament teams for 3 entry max are Josh Allen, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers. But from a cash setting, I don't think it really matters. I think there's a group of like 5 to 6 that you could choose from and you fill it out last. I think you fill out the rest of your team and you do that last and you're choosing between Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert. And as long as you land on one of those guys from a cash setting, I think you're good to go. In my 20 entry max, my pool is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 15 QBs in 20 entry max today.
So which 5 don't you have? Let's kind of work backwards. Let's see if me and Tim can guess the 5 quarterbacks that are not in. Is my math correct? Does that check out? Yeah, we're talking DK. There's 10 games. Okay. So
Derek Carr.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
All right.
That was the easy one. I'm gonna say Will Levis.
Correct.
All right. We got it. We got 2 so far. We're batting 1,000. Let's not blow it.
Drake May.
I like Drake May for tournaments today.
He can scoot. He can run.
He can scoot. He's got easy stack targets with DeMario Douglas and Hunter Henry. Gives you a super cheap little stack to play. My Drake May lineup has Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara in it. And so I actually like that stack for tournaments facing a Bears defense that's going to be missing a couple guys.
Okay. I'm going to say Russ.
Russ is in the pool. So that's 2 X's.
Wow.
Really? Russ is in the pool, huh? Okay. Yeah. Pairing with Pickens, I assume?
Yeah.
What about Rush?
Cooper Rush is not in the pool.
All right.
I thought about it because he's like in SimLabs, he's got a lot of positive leverage, or at least he did yesterday. I haven't looked at that today yet, but a lot less than before. So never mind. That makes me feel a lot better about it.
So there's 2 more?
Yeah. And one of them is the best leverage play in SimLabs.
Jalen Hurts?
Okay. No, Matt Jones.
No, it's Bo Nix.
Oh, it's Bo Nix. I'm getting to more Mac Jones than I thought possible.
I do have Mac Jones, but Bo Nix is currently 5.65% optimal, 1.4% owned. So maybe I will just throw in a Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton team into the Millie maker.
Why did he not crack it out of curiosity? You had to stop it at some point, obviously.
I wanted multiple Flacco, Allen, Rodgers teams. And so that was why. I just needed a couple guys to get rid of.
So who's the last one? Who have we not talked about that's not in your pool?
This is probably the toughest one.
Let's see. Okay, so that means it's like probably somebody you should consider playing. Baker Mayfield?
No, Baker is in the pool.
Kirk Cousins? No, he can throw for 303 here pretty easily. Oh, is it Justin Herbert because he's going to be too popular?
It is Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah. I think he had his best game of the year last week, if I'm not mistaken. But
he did.
Yeah,
I am heavy on the Broncos defense today. They're my highest owned defense.
Wow.
Are they like 2.5 or something like that? They're super cheap.
4.
Yeah. Defense. I'm really surprised that the Bears are so popular. And I think they're dealing with some injuries too. Did we officially get the Bears injury report? Because I know there were some guys that were, some of their key pieces were questionable as of yesterday. But, I guess I sort of get it. No real weather, I don't think, in Chicago, but, pretty cheap price. And that New England offense is not an offense that we're, expecting a ton of points from. 16 and change is currently their team total. All right. Let us know what I guess the chat's letting us know what's going on with the Giants and the Carolina Panthers. Did you guys bet anything? Any player props for that game? I did not. I got nothing for that game.
I got nothing. I forgot it even existed, to be honest with you.
I did Tyrone. I haven't looked at the stats yet, but I did Tyrone Tracy rushing yards laddered up to 100. And it seems as though he is 1 carry for 2 yards with Singletary out carrying him so far. Should have done it with Chuba.
Yeah, you got to get the narrative straight. You just got paid 6 for 65. Good for Hubbard. Panthers up early 7-0. Young threw a touchdown pass to Sanders. So there you go. I don't know what Carolina's doing. They drafted a running back in the second round and they just paid Hubbard, but I guess he kind of earned it. But, that seems like a strange strategy. They're going 1-2 running back. Is that the plan going forward? Who knows?
And then they'll draft Alshon Gentry this year.
Yeah, why not? All right. Other quarterbacks that are worth. By the way, the ownership stuff. We'll get a more refined, number. Obviously, this is as of early in the morning. Actually, I think we just got a new batch, right? Maybe 15 minutes ago. I think we did. If we hit the refresh button. Okay, good. Yeah. So we have Hurts at 1% or 2%. I know they had that report about he was dealing with an ankle or something like that. I don't think it's anything too serious. I think he's super because they could just rip Dallas. The tricky part is, does Dallas punch back? But they have to score 28 somehow, and maybe they just light him up with 4 touchdowns from Hurts, a couple rushing as well. You never really know how that's going to go down. Most popular quarterback is Purdy. Not terribly surprising. Herbert, second most popular. He just seems a little bit too cheap. Tennessee's got a pretty good defense, and I don't know how much they push back. I know they've been passing the ball more of late with Herbert.
Herbert's simming really well too. I don't like that game. That's just my own cognitive bias, I guess. But I mean, it's just like that game's gonna be super, super slow. Lad's simming really well also. So that Herbert Lad is simming out very strong. I don't particularly like it, but I mean, I guess I understand it because he's going to be fairly cheap. But I don't know. I'm not going to roster it.
Was it last week where it was the Sims were yeah, play Geno, and I was yeah, every quarterback but Geno, and then Geno was the best quarterback of the week.
Well, no, Daniel Jones is who killed me last week. That was a really bad take on my part. I didn't mind Geno in cash. I didn't like Daniel Jones. I couldn't believe how well Daniel Jones played.
Yeah. Well, who's your most popular quarterback, TJ? I know you said you have a big pool. I know you were kind of running down some names. Who's the biggest name, the most popular name you currently have ownership wise?
Josh Allen.
I like it. Yeah, we currently have Allen as the 4th most popular. I'm a little surprised we have Darnold at 3rd, 11% on TK. Purdy 18, Herbert 11, Darnold 11, Allen 9, Rodgers 9. Yeah. Does the Darnold thing, is that a little surprising to you guys at 11%? I guess, you want to pair him with Jefferson.
That Jacksonville defense is just so horrible. And, Minnesota has a 25-point total, which is quite nice on the slate.
Yeah. Again, it's just a question of how much can Jacksonville push back. They're 7-point dogs at home. I've been in that stadium before a couple times. They basically don't have a home field advantage in Jacksonville. Nobody's paying attention. Every once in a while they'll say Duval, but otherwise it's there's not much. There's the pool, not much going on. But yeah, it is going to be it's going to be hot for Minnesota. I guess we could say that. Tricky temperature change for them. They're up there in Minnesota typically. I know they play in the dome, but they live their lives in the cold. What else do we have here, Tim, as far as the Sims? What are we showing here? I'm pulling it up right now. Mac Jones is simming the best with Russ Wilson.
Yep.
And then Bone. Yeah, it is always funny. Inversely, it's like the ones you don't want, but that's just how that goes, right? It pushes you on plays you're not necessarily thrilled about, but math is a thing too. Is there anything that really stands out to you, Tim, as far as the quarterback iterations here, as far as the optimal versus projected ownership?
Not particularly, other than I didn't think Herbert would have that high of an opto rate. I think that's the biggest one for me. I didn't think he'd be that high owned either. Like Tennessee is just not a defense that I necessarily want to stream against. So that one was surprising to me. The Herbert one, the Purdy one, I'm not surprised at all. Like he's going to be super, super popular. He's going to be, I think, the most popular cash game quarterback on both FanDuel and DK. He's like the obvious choice. I like that Allen has the highest opto rate. Like I really like him today. I'm considering him in my main GPP single entry team. I'm not gonna be playing him in cash, but if you have a build that you like somehow and you want to play Allen in cash, I don't think that's the worst thing. He's obviously got an amazing matchup, and he's got some really, really nice pieces to pair with also. So I think Allen's a really, really strong play.
I'm hearing some funky feedback, Bo. You hearing that, TJ? Is that from Tim?
Are you still hearing it, or did you just for a little bit before?
I'm still kind of hearing a strange echo, but I can deal with it. If you guys can't hear it, I don't know what's going on my end, but not a big deal. Maybe people in chat can hear it too. I'm not sure. J3 says, TJ, you're turning heel. You're ignoring the chat. That's not the case, right? You're taking a peek at chat. And you're multitasking. I see you deleting some more spam. You're on top of stuff, right?
Yeah, we're deleting spam. I was just trying to find my computer charger, so that could have been a noise. I also didn't have headphones in, and so now I just threw them in. So hopefully, if there was some type of echo, that'll get rid of it. Yeah, I'm trying to look at the chat, but it is tough. We're trying to, delete all the spam and make sure I can stay on analyst, find the computer charger, get everything in gear. But I apologize, J3. I'll do my best to be acknowledged in the chat as well.
Great on a curve. TJ didn't know, like he's obviously prepping and he's playing and all that kind of stuff, but he didn't know he was going to be on the show until about 3 minutes before the show started, basically. So shout out to TJ for being willing to step up. Bobby dealing with some technical issues. Hopefully we'll get that figured out soon enough. Chat, let me know who your favorite quarterback is this week. Is there somebody we're missing? Something we should talk about? Yeah. I have a feeling that the single entry stuff like Allen's going to get popular. I'm a little bit concerned about that.
You think Allen's going to get steamed a little bit?
Well, because this is what TJ's talking about. This is what you're talking about. This is what we all kind of came up with it independently. It's and it's kind of obvious, right? If Buffalo's going to be losing some of their receivers, if Indy's going to be losing some of their receivers, you get the secondary guys for kind of discounts. We're looking for any sort of ways to pinch pennies. And if we can get Josh Allen somehow. So yeah, Josh Allen with 2 receivers with a run back, or 2. It just seems really, I don't want to say obvious, but that's kind of in a dome, right? Good pace in this game as well. I'm a little bit afraid
that's sad. I built my Josh Allen lineups last night, and the ownership was low, and I was feeling good about it. And it was before Cooper got removed from the projections, and I wake up this morning, and it's all right, this is the chalk build.
Yeah. This is just my opinion, right? But I just sort of think that's what
I don't think that's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be the chalk build though, TJ. I think it's going to be Purdy stuff is going to be chalkier.
I hope so. I put 2 Purdy lineups in. One of them is kind of like the chalk style Purdy lineup with Deebo Samuel with Jawan Jennings, but I went Barkley Taysom instead of Kamara and whoever else that I think people will utilize there. But the other one, I went Pearsall and Kittle, and I think that'll be my lower owned Purdy team.
I guess Debo's not getting nearly the ownership that I thought he would. Jawan Jennings, though, he's getting significant ownership. So maybe I don't know. It's close between those two. And then of course Herbert and McConkey. That's gonna be a chalky pairing also. So
I think that's bad for single entry. I'm not doing that. At least I don't want to. That's not.
I mean, I hate to say that it's bad because it's simming so well, but it could just be my own, bias, right? Like we should be following the data, and it's a terrifying click. Really, I don't really want a lot of exposure to that game, but when it sims out that well, you have to take notice. So it's really hard for me. Like the advice should be to follow the data. Now, am I actually going to do that with my own American dollars? I don't know. There's a lot of pairings that I prefer. So, and if Debo's really going to be 5%, then
I think he is about that. Yeah, people are afraid of him. Like he's injury prone
because he's injury prone, and CMC is back. Is that the reason?
I think so, and he's expensive. Like he's got a pretty good price. He's like 6'9". That's a pretty good price.
I was gonna say, like, that seems like a too cheap of a price tag. This is a fantastic matchup too. Jawan Jennings seems to be the one that's getting the most steam. If that's the case, then I'd rather just do a Purdy Debo pairing instead of a Purdy than to eat the chalk with Purdy and Jawan Jennings.
I like just like the general conversation. We'll bounce around. We're still kind of sort of on quarterbacks, but since we're on San Fran, Tim, CMC. If this was like, mid-season form CMC, what we got last year, the year before, when healthy, 8K is actually too cheap, right? We would pay 9K plus for him back in the day. You can't imagine they're just going to throw him out there and have him just be the guy and get every single touch, especially when their backup running backs have been good. Mason's been good. Gorendo's been good. Sometimes Debo, when called upon, getting a carry or two. So I don't think I'm sure you have this. I don't have this pulled up. I'm curious what our projection is as far as touches. Maybe he gets 70%.
We have him for 13.5 rushing attempts, 70 rushing yards and 5 targets, and projected for 20 fantasy points. So I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, that's fine. I still prefer a few other running backs more, though.
Yeah, I like what DK did, where they actually like challenge you. Bless you, TJ. Where they actually challenge you and make you think. And I'm not saying you can't play him on FanDuel, but he's the second most expensive running back on FanDuel. He's 9.4, just right below Saquon. And I look, I'd have a hard time getting the CMC, and I got to make a bunch of lineups first. Also, you got to think though, San Fran, if they can get him in the box, I'll get him in the box. This is the same team. What was that streak he had a year or two ago when they were up by like 3 or 4 touchdowns and they were trying to get him, I think, a touchdown or a catch at the end of the game? Like they were aware of some kind of streak. So maybe they're going to they want to give him a touchdown to come back to, I suppose. But you can't necessarily manufacture it, but they'll take it. I don't know what to do with CMC, but I think he's at least interesting on DK. FanDuel. TJ, what are we doing with McCaffrey being back in our lives, especially on DK?
I have 0%. I'm going to take a wait and see approach. If we were hurting at running back today, then maybe I would want to take shots on a low-owned CMC. But there are just too many other running backs I like. What I mentioned before, since I have such a tight quarterback pool, since I have such a huge quarterback pool, the opposite of tight, I have a really, really tight running back pool today. And so CMC just did not make the cut. He's coming back from Achilles tendonitis. That doesn't really seem like something that they'll throw him in 100% for right off the bat.
Yeah, like almost definitely not 100%. Like Tim was saying, 13, 14 rushes, something like that. Yeah, thank you. In chat, they're telling me most games with a touchdown in a row. That's what it was. I remember that streak, and they were up big in like the fourth quarter, and they still wanted to get him that touchdown. And they were down by the goal line. It didn't happen, but they at least tried a couple times. Anyways, are you allergic to where did your dog go, TJ? I saw your dog popped up earlier. He scrammed away.
Yeah, he ran away. I've been sneezing like, I'm happy I got the mute in, but I've been sneezing like crazy since I woke up this morning. I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, look at you. You're powering through. We do appreciate you giving it a go. Any other final thoughts as far as quarterbacks? If anybody had any thoughts in chat, you want us to elaborate on one of these quarterbacks, by all means, go for it. But Like TJ, he's got 15 of 20. They're at least in the pool. You were saying you like Josh Allen.
I added a Millie Maker team and then a $5 single entry with Bo Nix too.
Did you pair him with Sutton?
Yeah.
A la carte? Yeah.
Yeah. Bo Nix, Sutton, Hopkins.
And
then mix and match different pieces. I'm putting one of Kamara or Taysom in most of my lineups, one of Jefferson or Aaron Jones in most of my lineups, and try and get one piece of the Bills. That's kind of like my main overall strategy today with each of these stacks. Stacking a bunch of different quarterbacks, Jones or Jefferson, Taysom or Kamara, one piece of the Bills. Like that's my general strategy today.
What about, if I can add to that, eventually you run out of spots, but like one of either Hall or Wilson or Adams, is that something you considered?
No, just because of the prices on those guys. But like that, what I love about the Kamara Taysom thing, it's like if I'm using a cheap stack, I use Kamara. If I'm using an expensive stack, I can use Taysom. But I actually am quite heavy on the Cardinals defense today. I have a few big jet stacks. Like I have one of my main three teams is a Rodgers, Adams, Wilson stack. But outside of my Rodgers stacks, I'm playing a decent amount of Cardinals defense.
Don Yeezy's talking about the Eagles. They're going to score 30 points and no one is talking about them. Yeah, I think the Eagles are really interesting. They don't like Dallas either, so they might like kind of step on that throat if they can. You know, it's just, these two teams don't like each other historically, obviously. And Dallas
Saquon's my third highest owned running back.
I was going to talk about Saquon. I don't really have much interest in the passing game because I don't think Dallas can really punch back. But I love Saquon today.
We have Brown at 3%, Smith at 1%. Goddard's back for what it's worth. I don't think I'd go there because, you know, I'm not really sure how good he is, and it's his first game back in a month plus. But yeah, Barkley at 11, Hurts at 2. I was trying to think of Dallas run backs, and I think Dowdle's not terrible, but he just seems a little bit too expensive. But I guess you can do Ferguson, I suppose.
I don't think you need one.
Yeah. But I could see Dowdle getting there in like nonsense, you know, down by 21, and they're still fighting. I assume he's well ahead of Zeke at this point. He should be.
If they were cheaper, I'd be forcing run backs. But like Dowdle's not expensive. But like Ferguson's $5K, Tolbert's over $5K. If those guys were like a little bit cheaper, I'd probably want to force it back. But like Lamb's the most expensive player on the slate. I just don't feel like I need any Dallas.
No,
yeah,
I don't have any interest in Dallas. That game for me is just a Saquon one-off, and that's it.
I was saying this over in the week. You mentioned the Pick Six show, TJ. It's like I feel like I don't remember. Maybe I'm just making this up. Does Philly and Dallas usually like have like 49, 50, 51, 52 team totals, 43.5? And we're looking at Dallas. This is mostly on Dallas.
It's because they don't have Dak. They don't have Dak to run the offense. Dak is usually pretty up-tempo quarterback. So, I mean, Cooper Rush is not going to have this game be very, very high paced.
It's a good name for an athlete, though. If I was writing, TJ, if we were writing a script for like a football movie, the name of my quarterback, it's Cooper Rush, right? It's a good name. Sounds like a Cooper
I remember liking Kareem Rush in the NBA for specifically that reason. I thought he had a really cool name. I would always pick him up in 2K because he had a low overall, but he was a good shooter, and so he was a good like bench player in 2K. He reminded me of I can't believe I'm going on this long about Kareem Rush, but Kareem Rush to me was always just like Michael Redd light, you know?
Oh wow,
lefty 3-point slinger, similar forms. That's how I thought of him.
Michael Redd was one of those what could have been, right? Injuries, big bummer for him. He certainly had the potential to have a big career. I'm trying to see if there's any other quarterback. Eric just showed up and wants to know, did he miss all the Drake talk? We actually did talk a little bit about Drake May, and he's in TJ's pool, and he can, as we said, he can scoot, he can move, he can run. So, and he's cheap.
I saw during the Tournament Take show, I saw Eric in chat saying that he liked Drake May, and it almost made me want to change my Drake May team, XML. But I do still have the one.
Say what you want to say, TJ. What are you saying? But the update as far as Germany, it's 10-0 Carolina. Daniel Jones still in at quarterback. 3 for 9, 30 passing yards. Oh, this is the week, Coker. Unbelievable, you troll. Coker, 3 catches for 41 yards. I've been playing this dude every single week, and it's been horrendous. But good for him. There you go. Coker is doing his thing. Yeah, Erik is mentioning Douglas. I do like the Pop Douglas Drake combination a little bit in tournaments. Again, we're just kind of pinching pennies and trying to figure things out and make stuff work salary-wise. Something that would help you do that is, speaking of value, DFS. It's all about value. Busiest time in the sports calendar, which means it's the perfect time to sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Limited time, you get your first month of combo access for just $79 and change, $79.99 if you want to get all tactical, just $5 more than NBA Premium. If you want just NBA, by all means, that'd be weird. You're watching this show and all you care about is NBA Premium, but I suppose that's possible. You can do that as well. We're also doing NBA shows all the time as well. That's why you turn on notifications. Also hit the like button and you subscribe. Do all those things to help us keep that light on. The Listener League. Do join the Listener League this week if you happen to win it. If you win a Listener League, you get yourself a full month of RotoGrinders Premium. All the stuff we're talking about, all the bells, all the whistles, SimLabs, Lineup HQ, the tags, the optimizer, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, PGA, MMA. If I missed a sport, my bad. Everything but NASCAR. Jump in the description. In the description, there's a link to the Listener League. Spots are limited.
I just dropped it in chat too.
Yeah, there you go. It's in chat as well. But there's no excuse because if you're playing DraftKings, you don't have to do anything extra. Just click that button and join that one as well. Throw whatever lineup you're making right now and then throw it in there. And you get yourself a month free of RG Premium. I believe both you guys are probably in there. I'm in there as well, just for funsies. You guys can take down some of your favorite hosts. Tim, are you in the Listener League?
I am not.
You don't.
I haven't been. I haven't been since week 3 when I stopped getting the invite.
I don't know why that happened because I just get the auto link. Why you had this conspiracy theory? You thought you were getting.
It's not. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not. It's the
what would
truth,
be the
Dean.
goal to cut Tim out? It's like
it's the truth.
Why would somebody?
Well, I got an invite every week for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and all of a sudden, nothing.
Yeah, well, I'm not getting a personalized invite. DK just, I'm on the thing, I'm on the list.
Yeah, well, I'm not on the list anymore, Dean. So
all right,
TJ,
you a VIP or you got to find the link yourself every single week?
No, I get it sent in the email. It still says to me it comes from a recurring contest from Devo Canivo, and so it makes me. I see it I see it every week, and just get happy that I still get to see a little piece of Devin. Shout out
to Devin. CMC will be in full force. Oh wow, what is that? Oh, I love these adjectives. According to Schefter, CMC Achilles will be in full force. What does full force mean, TJ, when it comes to how many touches he'll get?
It means, sure, fine, I will throw him in my Baker Mayfield team. But that's it. That's the only CMC I'm playing still.
I think you said you had 0 earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm throwing him in one team right now. I'm throwing him in my Baker Mayfield team.
Does this change anything for you, Tim, wherever you're at in CMC? Do you believe full force? Because to me, full force was like 95%, 100% CMC. And I don't believe that's going to be the case. I'm saying they're lying.
Let's think about this, though. I mean, we still have Kamara. We still have
80%
Bijan,
force.
We still have Barkley. We still have Breece Hall. I mean, and then so we have these tremendous top end running backs. All are in pretty above average to great matchups. So, yes, CMC at 8K, like in prime CMC, that would be way too cheap. But still, like, I think Kamara is safer. I think all 4 of those guys I just mentioned are probably safer than CMC.
That was Don Yeezy that posted that, and he's always posting good stuff in chats. I know he's not making.
Yeah, he's not making it up. He's just copy and pasting that right from Schefter. So I mean, it's fine. Like, obviously, if you want to play CMC, that's fine. And like Ruthless Villain said in chat, like full force 8K CMC sounds good. Yeah, it sounds good. But it also sounds like possibly some steam as well. And when I have guys that I are much more confident and know to expect from, then I'm going to go with those other guys more likely than CMC.
I'm just saying, and I'm not being nitpicky here. Maybe I am, but like full force CMC is like 100% of the touches. That's what we've seen before, and I can't. I refuse to believe he's going to get 100% of the touches. I don't agree with that descriptive. That's not possible. Basically,
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, like full. Maybe I'm just picking, but like I do think he gets the majority, right? The majority, but full force is a silly way to describe that. Like Mason's going to touch the ball today at some point, I imagine. Don't play him, obviously. All right. Yeah, I went on Twitter. I tried to find that quote. I couldn't find it on Schefter, but maybe it was something he said on. Is he on ESPN doing the car wash? But yeah, I assume that quote is correct and from somewhere, either on Twitter or on ESPN. All right, let's talk about running backs. We kind of talked about it throughout the show as we've discussed the slate as a whole. It's the strongest position, right, TJ? You said you had the tightest pool, which is kind of surprising, but you got to take a stand somewhere, right? Otherwise, what are you doing? We have currently, and this is a little bit surprising to me. I kind of get it because of the price. Aaron Jones is our most popular running back right now on DK, 33%. Then Kamara 24, Bijan 23, Hall 20. I wonder if that's going to like separate between Kamara and Robinson and Hall. And maybe CMC joins that conversation. Right now we have him at 13. Maybe that adjusts. I also think people just kind of like want to play CMC. They're excited at the prospect. Season-long people, maybe. I'm just adding a little bit of that. I don't know how you quantify it. But, yeah, like, do you have a bold, I'm not playing this guy. This guy's not in my pool. You ran out to, TJ, you're talking about your pool as far as running backs. Is it like 10, 15? How small is the running back pool for you currently?
Well, by adding Christian McCaffrey to that one Baker Mayfield team, it got it up to 10. But I have Christian McCaffrey in one lineup. I have Bijan Robinson in 2. I have Breece Hall in 1. So if you kind of assume those guys are not actually part of my pool, they're just there as run backs for specific stacks, then my entire pool is Saquon, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, James Conner, Austin Eckler for my core.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting to a lot of Jonathan Taylor and James Cook because I'm playing a lot of Josh Allen, which gets me to Jonathan Taylor, and a lot of Joe Flacco full stacks, which gets me to James Cook.
I thought Taylor was a sharp like leverage play because the indie receivers are going to be popular, but I think he's going to get some ownership too, right?
I was surprised. I was surprised at his ownership, given how popular the indie pass catchers are.
Yeah, we have him at 20%, and I don't know, Tim. I feel like I might be a little bit lower than that because, like you said, and like we're kind of the point that the indie receivers will be popular. We'll get to that in a second. The absence of Pittman. Do you think anything sort of separates? And did you? Let's see. I think we just got a new batch. I gave it a refresh. No, it's just still about a half hour, 45 minutes old. Of course, there will be a new batch coming of ownership. How do we feel about that, Tim, up top? Jones, Kamara, Bijan, Hall, Taylor, James Conner, Swift. I believe Chicago's without their top 2 tackles, if I'm not mistaken. Not saying you can't play Swift, but 2 of their linemen, I believe, are out today. The Eckler thing is a little weird because maybe they don't want to run him to the ground. He kind of gets hurt, I think, by having a lead because we saw Rodriguez got some burn in the second half last week. And yeah. I don't know, is Eckler the guy that like runs this game out? It should be a tight game for what it's worth. They could be behind for sure. No Robinson if you missed it. If you're wondering why Eckler is popping. And they have McNichols too. They have like 3 different dudes that can get some burn. I don't know what to do with Eckler officially. I want your take on that, Tim. But anything else as far as that's?
I don't know what to do about Aaron Jones. He's the tough one for me. Like he is super chalky. I'm fine with it if you want to play in the cash games. Like you don't worry about ownership in cash. But I really want to get to, like I already said, like I really want to play Justin Jefferson. I don't know if I can really play Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones together, especially with all that Aaron Jones projected ownership. So I think for me that's the tough one in single entry GPPs. But yeah, I really like Breece Hall today. I think he's a really, really strong play. I really like the Jets today. So I think Breece Hall is a very strong play, especially if Aaron Rodgers is going to get ownership. So I do like Breece Hall. I think, we already talked about Saquon. I love Saquon. If he's only going to be 10% owned, I definitely like him as a pivot off of guys like maybe like Bijan or Kamara in a GPP contest. I don't really want to pay down for running back. So like if you want to play Austin Eckler, that's fine. I'm probably not clicking his name in any format today. I don't think I would play anyone lower than I think James Conner is a fantastic GPP play. I think I wouldn't go any lower than James Conner.
Conner and Swift, same price. They're both 6'5". I saw Stevenson getting mentioned in chat. Ramondre, 6'4". Harris has been good for what it's worth. I know people don't like playing Najee. He's been good. 100 yards. I want to say in 3 straight games, if I'm not mistaken. Decent chance to get in the box as well. Yeah, 3 straight games, 100 on the ground. Not the best pass catcher necessarily. I thought that Algier would be interesting, but man, I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Like he's just priced so close to the starters, right? And he's kind of like the 1B, I suppose. And he's probably the guy that would close things out if Atlanta's up big versus New Orleans. So, not a big enough discount, but like if I was making a ton of lineups, probably in my pool. Shiv Daddy's saying Gainwell is going to win the Millie today. I don't think that's happening, but okay. Have at it. You get yourself some Gainwell. TJ, who is your cheapest running back? I know you mentioned Eckler. Is he your cheapest one? Is there somebody you have below that I missed?
No, Eckler is the cheapest one for me today. I thought about putting Chris Rodriguez in a lineup, but I didn't do it.
Is he like 4? Yeah, 4.3. Yeah.
I just realized I'd rather Noah Brown if I'm picking a Washington Commander who's 4.3.
Yeah, and like I think you definitely need them ahead, right? I don't think he catches the ball. I'm pretty sure he's not a guy that's gonna get any receptions for you. Anybody else? Jordan Mason at 7.4. I think that's a hard pass.
No.
Didn't even bother adjusting that. TJ,
No.
Are we okay playing? Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say, does anyone have any interest in J.K. Dobbins? Because I don't.
No.
Yeah.
It's a leverage play if you want to make that argument, right? Because Herbert's going to get popular, but it's not. I mean, Tennessee's a pretty good defense, and he doesn't really catch the ball. Like he certainly can get 200 and 102, but I can't play everybody, and he's not one of my favorites, and that's that. TJ, we can play Jones if you have the salary. Jones and Jefferson together.
You can. I'm not getting to it very often just because there are so many spend ups I want to get to. So if I'm playing Jones, I'm more likely to also get, Kamara or Barkley, or I'm using him because I'm having an expensive stack with Josh Allen. And so I'm not playing very much Jones and Jefferson together. I do have them together once with a Darnold team.
I was just sort of thinking like how concise, they both can get there and they could score 28 points, right? As a team, like they both can definitely get there. But, yeah, I'm not forcing it, obviously, but I think I'm okay with that in theory. Tim, your most ambitious running back call, like you have like a bold X or a bold lock?
I guess. Well, I'm not playing CMC in single entry or cash. So that could end up being a terrible take.
I don't think he's going to be in the cash pool. I could be wrong. Maybe the projections change with this whatever news they're throwing out. You think he's going to be in some cash lineups? Maybe.
I don't know, but I'm not playing him in either one. I don't know. It's really tough. Like, I guess Saquon's going to be a little bit contrarian, and I absolutely love Saquon in any format. So I think Saquon's my guy today.
Yeah, I mean, 10% Saquon against Dallas, right? Like that looks all until they get to the 1 yard line. then you're going to be tilting.
Then I'm going to be tilting my face off and shutting off the quad box.
Yeah. You're a quad box guy, all right? Is that
I am for football. Yeah, that's the only sport that I quad box.
Yeah, I got the red zone. They bounce around. TJ, you got the red zone in Canada, right? I assume that's a thing there.
Yeah, but I'm going to be honest. I genuinely don't even know how to set up Sunday Ticket in Red Zone because it says that I can only do it through YouTube Premium, and I have YouTube Premium, and I still don't know how to actually get it working. So I usually just watch the games that are on cable, or if
you watch commercials.
I want to watch.
You watch commercials on Sunday?
I'll just flip to the other game. There's like 4 on at once, and so that's what I'll do. I usually
if I can figure it out, TJ, I feel like you can figure it out.
TJ,
I haven't tried that hard. I have a DAZN gift card that's for like a full season, and I haven't set it up. Yep. I have routes to get it done. I just haven't done it.
This is the oldest you've ever sounded. Right now. I've never heard you sound old.
Tired.
I've never heard you sound older.
Here's the thing. I can't
figure out how to get
every single football Sunday this year. It's not that I can't do it. It's that every single football Sunday this year, I have been up since 6:30 a.m. As soon as the game starts, I've been on a show since the very beginning. Yeah. And so I get to the game starting, and all I want to do is grab some food, lay in bed. 90% of the time, the games I want to watch are on TV anyways, and when they're not, I just pull up a stream on my laptop and have 2 going at once. So maybe get the dual TVs going. I have premium YouTube TV. I just I've tried searching it up on the thing, and I just it didn't work. So I genuinely wonder, maybe it's a Canada thing as to why it wasn't showing up, but I have YouTube Premium with the YouTube app on my TV, and it just wasn't popping up.
Let's see. Any other running backs that are worth acknowledging? I'm trying to see if the chat has any thoughts as far as some RBs, but no other name. They're giving TJ the business in regards to not being able. But just again, I'm surprised. I'm sure you can. You just haven't put the effort into it.
I've never put longer than 3 or 4 minutes into it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we should mention as far as running backs that we should stress before we talk about some receivers?
I think we're good on the RBs.
Okay. Receivers. Where, if we have all the money in the world, we don't live in the world of a salary cap. Of course, we're going to try to play some Jefferson. He is pricey though. It's tough to get there. I know earlier in the week, some of the Jets were kind of popular. Do we have a favorite Jet receiver, Tim? I think it's Wilson.
I think it's Wilson
over Adams.
I think it's Wilson over Adams. I think Wilson has a better ceiling than Adams, where Adams might be a better floor play. But I think it's Wilson for me.
You got anything different than that, TJ?
I think Wilson also is the better floor, just because I think he's going to catch more receptions, but I do like Wilson better as well.
Are you prioritizing the Jet receivers?
I don't have a single lineup that only has one of them. I only have Rodgers with both of them in a couple lineups.
Sully in chat says 1% CeeDee Lamb. Yeah. I do a lot of the underdog drafts. You can get CeeDee Lamb at it's 16, which is kind of wild. Of course, the context, you understand why. And I guess he's fine. He had, a shoulder he had last week. Of course, he lost his quarterback as well. So I was drafting him 16th overall, give or take, with some lineups, but it's hard. It's really hard to spend up on there. They want full price, and this isn't full. Of course he can, I guess. He's still really talented. But if I'm going to spend that much and be different, I'm just going to play AJ Brown. That's the guy I'm going to play at 3 or 4%, basically the same price. We talk about Debo. Debo's cheap enough where, you can play him and somebody else as far as a pricey play. We can run. I see McLaurin and Pickens. You can kind of run those guys at each other. Another guy that got hurt last week, hurt a lot of lineups. We're assuming he's back and no issues, is London, coming at 11% in the dome there versus New Orleans. It's just a matter. He's not really somebody that breaks slates, right? He's like a floor guy. And I think just once the entire season, it's man, I really wish I played London today. Otherwise, not somebody you necessarily need. TJ, how are you handling receivers? And, feel free to go up all the way down to the bottom, and we need some salary savers. I asked earlier, maybe the chat, we have new people coming in on through. Give me your favorite salary saver receiver. Or at least the one you're playing. I don't know if favorite's the right way to phrase that because not a lot of them feel spectacular. What do you got, TJ?
Yeah, so Jefferson, I'm trying to get to as much as I can. I'll be over the field. I want him in every lineup that doesn't have Aaron Jones. AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, Drake London. All of them are in my pool. All of them are stacking exclusively for me. I'm trying to keep a fairly tight core of guys that I'm using as one-offs. And so London, Pickens, Samuel, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, I'm playing all of them, but only in lineups that I'm either playing their quarterback or I'm playing them against the other team's quarterback as a run back. Josh Downs, Khalil Shakir, DeAndre Hopkins, that is a core for me, even though they are coming in very highly owned. Jawan Jennings, Alec Pierce at 4,900. I think the fact that we're getting extreme ownership on every Colts player except for Alec Pierce is pretty nuts. I think $4,900 for him is a fantastic play for GPPs today. Quentin Johnston, I really like for tournaments. Demario Douglas, I'm playing in my Drake May team. Noah Brown has seen his ownership drop a little bit. I think he's a really good play still. Wide receiver 2s have absolutely torched Pittsburgh all season long because they got Joey Porter Jr. on the wide receiver 1. He's one of the best DBs in the league. Ryan S. saying I look like I rolled out of bed before every show. Guess what? I did roll out of bed for this one because I didn't think I was going to be on camera. And so I rolled out of bed, threw on a shirt, and thought I was just going to be behind the scenes. But Noah Brown, like I said, wide receiver 2s against Pittsburgh. I like him quite a bit. Sterling Shepard was someone who looked like he was going to be chalky earlier in the week when we had no value. Now that we do, I think he makes for a really strong value play at 4,100. I am still waiting to hear on McMillan if we have news on that yet. I haven't seen it. But I do want to see if he's going to play still. That might lower me on Shepard. And then
we're not projecting him for what it's worth.
We're not. Okay. Yeah. As it stands right now, I do still have some Shepard, but that's something I'd want to adjust. Sutton in my Knicks team, Adunze and Keenan Allen in my one Caleb Williams team. But to me, the really important trio of cheapies is Mac Hollins, Adonai Mitchell, Curtis Samuel.
A.B. Mitchell, for those that aren't aware. And yeah, Brit just dropped in chat. Brit will be on later, by the
way. On cue. Yeah, Jalen McMillan is good to go.
Okay, so interesting. All right, yes, he should be available today. What is his price? I have not really looked into. Is he in the threes? He's not,
I think.
Okay.
Isn't he? I could be wrong.
No, he's 4.2. He's 4.2.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of like the thing. Like you mentioned Pierce. Like Pierce should be like 3.6, 3.7. Nope, 4.9. Like what? This guy hasn't done anything in like a month. Like for real. Anyway, a good start to the season. He caught that bomb.
I'd rather play Mac Hollins anyway.
Yeah.
If he was that low.
Dean in chat has figured out our secret.
What's the secret?
He said, I heard TJ and Dean still have beef, but they just drop it for the show. He has figured out that we
that's very true.
Hate each other.
TJ, I will see you at the bike rack at 3:00 sharp and be prepared to throw down. I don't know. Do people think we don't like each other? I don't know. We can play that up if we want to. We've slid each other's DMs, and I think we're perfectly cordial. I don't know. Not to kill any sort of. No, we hate each other. Never mind. Well, why am I saying that? I should lean in.
To be fair, my last DM to Dean outside of sending show links was saying that the movie he chose sucked.
Yeah, this is true. You sent it while I was doing a show, mid-show.
Yeah, I didn't realize it, but it was in the middle of Grinders Live, and I was like, Dean, what the hell? This movie sucks.
And you were like 5 minutes in, and it's like, I'm sorry I didn't choose a movie that didn't have the Hulk in it, so my bad. I did not cater it to you, but it's a show, it's a conversation for a different day. Are you sort of surprised, Tim? I'm a little surprised by this. This stuff can change, and who am I to pick apart the one number? I think Hopkins is going to be more popular than almost any receiver. Am I wrong in saying that? It's 5.3 just because of the discount. He's 20. We're saying we have 21%. We have Downs at 25, Shakir at 24. I just think that
I agree. I agree
Monday
with
night, we all saw him go nuts.
I agree with the top 3 of our projected ownership number. I think it goes down. I think it goes down. Shakir Hopkins, just like we have it.
Okay.
I mean, Ladd is popping everywhere. He might get some steam also. He might end up jumping Hopkins, which is seems just very strange to me. But you can't ignore the projections, and you can't ignore the sims. So I mean, Ladd is popping off everywhere, it seems. I'm a little bit surprised about A.D. Mitchell though, being that highly owned. Like he was like the 5th wide receiver last week. Like he's like, is it Ashton Doolin? I think played ahead of him, right? Like why are we all of a sudden catapulting Mitchell into this like highly owned, decent projection? I'm not really sure.
He's got the pedigree. He's a sexy name. He's the most talented, but he's also like the most raw, right?
Yeah.
But we haven't seen him do it this year once. It has not happened.
Right.
Like he can get there in like a 70 or a bomb, like that can happen, sure. I do agree that might be shaky, but also he's 3-4 and he's a part of that Indianapolis Buffalo game that looks to be one of the most popular games on the board, but it might be bad chalk. And like you said, he might just be played off the field, which wouldn't be surprising.
He's simming horribly. So he's very, very, very negative leverage. So is that entire Colts passing attack, to be honest. And Downs has a decent opto rate, but I mean, if he's really going to be 26%, like in the Millionaire contest, that's tough.
Who are the guys around him? I'm looking, like you mentioned Hollins, and he's just like, he's the ultimate sprinter. Shout out to Rebar. He's just out there exercising, right? But maybe he gets a little bit more. Maybe gets a little bit more thrown his way with their injuries. Cooper being out, but the floor on Hollins is also really, really rough. Curtis Samuel just seems like old and beat up at this point. Like he used to be a good like reception receipt. What do they call him? Reception, like a third down guy. There's a certain term for this. I can't think of the name of it, but as it happens, he said, he had injuries coming into the season. Feels like he's never really
played a little behind running back, played a little slot, played a little wide out.
I don't know who to pivot away. Is sort of what I'm asking, and maybe just play none of those guys in that area. Do you have a thought on this, Austin? I'm just trying to find somebody down here that'd be the pivot away from Mitchell. You said you're playing Mitchell, TJ. But the floor is 0. I think the floor is 0.
Yeah, I would agree. I also, just for full clarity, I told everybody that I was playing one Caleb Williams team. I'm getting rid of it because I want to play one more Josh Allen team. I want to do one triple stack that has Allen, doesn't have Shakir, just in case. I want to put one with Samuel and Hollins together with Kincaid in there, and I want to leave out Shakir just to get a little crazy. But what was the question? Sorry, I got lost in my own thought there.
I was asking about like potential pivots, and I don't know if there are any. I might have asked you a question where there's no actual.
A.D. Mitchell, yeah, it could be a 0, right? I think I like Matt Collins straight up better than A.D. Mitchell, but I'm still playing a lot of him today. Yes, he could have a 0, but there are like reports that he's going to be more involved. He's going to be the wide receiver 3 this week. He's also the type that just goes deep all the time, and so he just needs one catch. That's it. He just needs one, and so that's what I'm still going to be going heavy on A.D. Mitchell. I'm playing I have a lot of teams that are loading up on the expensive players and then just have Mitchell and Hollins in the same lineup today. And so, yeah, it's scary. He could end up with a 0, but I think the upside is very well worth it. Joy Boy Mac in chat asks, Amari Cooper not playing? We still actually don't officially know. We haven't officially heard on Amari Cooper yet. They did elevate 2 receivers off of the practice squad. And he's been in a cast throughout the week. And so I don't think he's going to play.
And he's a receiver. And the cast and the receiver probably. Like I've seen like defensive linemen play with a club before. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
But like, as a receiver, catching the ball feels like I'm with you. I think it's, not official, but pretty much definitely he is not going to be playing. Did want to mention Splash. Splash is still running a lot of Survivor Revival tournaments, as well as their Pick'em and Fantasy Tiers contest. Join the community games, splashsports.com/RotoGrinders. Promo code ROTO10. Use that upon sign up for a $10 bonus. And a limited time, you get you play $20 in quick pick entries, and you'll get yourself an additional $10 bonus. And TJ's dog, big fan of Splash over there, apparently. Let's talk some tight ends. In about 10 minutes or so, we're going to have Neil Orfield, Erik Beimfohr come on and join the show. And then, of course, they bleed into crunch time, which is Brit, who's already up early, hanging out in chat. Kristi and Will taking you home, answering your questions all the way up to lock. But, tight ends. TJ, you want to give me your approach to tight end today? You are on mute, sir.
Forgot to unmute after the dogs.
Dog's fault.
Taysom Hill, 4K. He's going to be my highest owned. I have him in almost every lineup that does not have Alvin Kamara. I got Kamara, Hill, or the Falcons defense in basically every single lineup I'm playing today. Hunter Henry, Tyler Conklin, two guys I'm using especially in stacks, but I also love them on their own as cheap options. I think Zach Ertz is a potential cheapie. Juwan Johnson is a potential cheapie. Somebody asked before, can I play Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill together? Look, I guess in theory, Hill could throw a touchdown pass to Juwan Johnson. And if that happens, you are absolutely cooking in tournaments. But I personally wouldn't play them together. I would rather play, if I'm playing Hill at tight end, I would rather play Matt Collins or A.D. Mitchell at the receiver position instead of Juwan Johnson. Thought I would have interest earlier in the week in Dallas Goedert if Devonta Smith didn't play, but Smith is playing, so I have no interest in Goddard anymore. I like Kyle Pitts against New Orleans. I like TJ Hawkinson against Jacksonville. I like Cade Otton at 55, and I like George Kittle at 58. I am fully fading Travis Kelce. I have Troy McBride in one team. I have with Kyler Murray. I have Evan Ingram in one team with Mac Jones, and I have Dalton Kincaid in a few lineups as well. But Taysom Hill is really my favorite guy here, and the only one that's an outside of sack play for me.
Do you have any Will Dissly?
I do not. All right, I think I have Dissly on my one Herbert team. Yes.
Yeah.
My Herbert team is a triple stack without McConkey.
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. Who's left standing?
Quentin Johnson.
Okay,
Dissly.
who's the third person?
Josh Palmer.
Okay.
Oh boy. All right. You love your triple stacks.
I do, but I had made that before I knew about all the Buffalo stuff opening up, so I think I probably will adjust that Josh Palmer and get something else in there.
What is the story? How does Dissly? I know chalk tight ends have been a thing, and he's like the third most popular right now on DK. Should have mentioned, you mentioned Kittle. Like he looks really solid on DK if you have the salary for sure. One of the biggest pricing disparities between the two sites. Kittle 5.8 on DK, 8K on FanDuel. Just really, really hard to get there in FanDuel. Like you can. And FanDuel's more like touchdown oriented. And of course he can have 2 touchdowns and be the top tight end, but that just seems hard to do on FanDuel for me. Tim, your thoughts as far as tight end and how does Dissly, how is he break if he's a chalk? I can't see him being the guy that really breaks stuff and need him. I famous last words, but
I was thinking of him. Dissly. I was thinking of him more in cash game settings. I doubt he's a separator for GPPs. I will say though, I'm getting to more tight ends in the flex in Sims, and it's not really close. So Sims is loving the double tight end.
Do you like that? Are you willing to play that?
In single entry, definitely. There's no question. I wouldn't mind getting to Taysom and maybe a Cade Otton. I think that's a pairing that definitely has has a ceiling. Those two could both end up breaking the slate, and so for 9,500 combined between Hill and Kate Otten, I don't hate that at all. Or obviously you could go Kittle as well, over Kate Otten. But I mean, there's some really decent plays at tight end at around all price ranges. So I think that I may very well play double tight end in single entry today. I still think in cash games you can play 3 running backs, and I think that's what I'm going to end up doing in cash.
I'm officially not playing cash games, but I would do my best to play 3 running backs, if only because I think running backs today are pretty precious, and I just want 3. I want to make 3, and if I have to punt with a terrible receiver, so be it. That's just kind of the decision point I would make. There's still some meat on the Kate Otten bone, I guess. They keep pricing him up, and
he plays. He plays.
Plotter,
he plays 95% of the snaps. Like, he's out there every single play. We know he's got the ceiling to pay off that $5,500 price tag, so I really don't mind him at all.
I wanted to see what his line was as far as receptions. I'm going to guess 5.5. I'm trying to see what his current Vegas line is. It is 5.5. Yeah, but heavy juice on the over. 5.5 minus 156. So that's just, really good floor for Otten.
Dean, I have a question for you about the 3 running back thing.
Yeah.
You have $6,400 remaining in your flex.
Okay.
Who is your flex? Are you forcing in the 4 running back? You going Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle, or are you playing Josh Downs, Khalil Shakir, one of those guys?
I don't like the predicament.
I don't like that. You should already have Shakir in your wide receiver spot, though.
It depends on the lineup you're running, right? Like, if you're running, say you want to run Rodgers with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, you don't have to put a cheap receiver in there. I'm just saying, like, who do you like straight up better in the flex in that 66K to 6,500 range? Would you rather play the Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris type running back, Austin Eckler, or would you rather play Shakir Downs? And even if you have Shakir, then it still leaves Downs there.
Generally, I want the touches, right? Like, and Harris is going to give you 20 touches, but I do feel really good about Downs and cash today. Is this a real question? Like, this
or just for tournaments in general? Like,
tournaments,
are you going to force in 3 running backs as opposed to playing all the mid-range receivers if you have one of them not in a lineup?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not married to it in every single lineup in tournaments, but in cash, and I'm sort of from the old school of, like, I want my 75 guaranteed touches for my 3 running backs. You know what I mean? Just trying to accumulate as many touches and targets possible as, like, a quote unquote floor.
Because I think for tournaments, you're always going to have one of those. You're mostly, if you're stacking, going to have one of these receivers available if you're stacking 2 pass catchers. Or even if you're talking about a cash type situation, if you're playing all 3 of them, Shakir, Hopkins, and Downs, and you're not going a 3K receiver in one of those 3 spots, that probably means you can't afford a 3rd running back for a cash game.
Yeah,
unless you're playing Mac Jones or potentially Justin Herbert, but even then it's tough.
It's a good question. It's a good point, and it's not a fun predicament, but it just sort of, it is what it is today. Defense, we don't really talk a lot of defense. Is that actually a real lineup? And if it is, what's the defense you're playing in that lineup? Or is that not a real lineup you're talking about? Is this hypothetical?
Most of my lineups, I don't have very many 3 running back lineups, except for the super cheap stacks I'm doing, just because they're really tough to do, I find today. But most of my defenses, because I'm looking to save salary, are super cheap. Like, the Broncos are my highest owned defense. Patriots are up there. I have Little Saints. I have Bears only in lineups that are super different. 49ers and Cardinals are probably my 2 favorite tournament defenses in addition to the Broncos. But, like, Vikings, Chargers, Eagles. I'd love to get up to them more. They're just hard to reach.
Tim, any thoughts on that, or any thoughts as far as defense cash? Are you able to get to the Bears? Is that what you want, or are you punting? What's your approach?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about just going with the Patriots actually, just because I kind of want that $500 difference. Man, that Bears projected ownership is way higher than I thought it would be. That's insane. But yeah, in cash, I'm playing the Patriots. It's fine if you want to play the Bears. I have no issue with that if you have the 500. I think GPPs, I like the Jets quite a bit. I know it's kind of weird to pay up at defense, but at GPPs, I like the Chiefs and I like the Eagles quite a bit as well. So those would be a couple of defenses to consider for larger field tournaments.
The old school stacking Saquon with his defense, is that the thought process there? And of course, Cooper Rush, who knows what we're going to see. There's thoughts that they're going to run out the other quarterback as well. The dude from San Fran, I'm losing his name for some reason.
Lance.
Yeah, Trey Lance. I don't know if they would dust him off today.
I think they're. I might have read something from Scheffner that said they're planning on like designing a package for him for this game.
Okay.
But who the hell knows what that means, really? So
is it a full force package or just a regular package?
I don't know, Dean. I don't actually know what is meant by that, but it would not shock me if Trey Lance was in this game, got into this game.
Yeah, obviously not playing him, but all right, let's go ahead and hand it off. We do have Erik Beimfohr and Neil Orfield coming in just a second. Let's get. Do we have the fancy little graphic, TJ? If we do, let's play it right now. All right, we got Erik Beimfohr and Neil Orfield. Erik, what does full force mean to you? What does full force mean to you? Because I'm told that CMC is full force. And full force CMC is him playing 100% of the plays. And that's like not possible, right? That's not possible? I guess it's possible. I don't think it's possible.
That is not possible. That's not possible. When's the last time he practiced before the last couple of weeks? It's CMC. Full force is not what we're going to see today. There's no chance. I don't believe it.
You're saying they're lying. They're liars? Is that what's happening?
No, it's just intentionally vague. He can say full force, and no one knows. We're sitting here talking about that. We don't know what the heck it means. Clearly, he can just say that. Yeah. What was it full? Right? Like when we get the results, what is Kyle going to say? Like, see, I told you it was full force, and you're like, what the heck did that even mean? I have no idea.
I'm a little bit more hopeful. I'm maybe not full participation, but like I think they're going to run him out there and potentially give him a lot of work. I don't know if they're going to be able to not use him once they see him if he's looking good. I don't know. It's probably unlikely. Eric's probably right that it's not like the likeliest scenario that he gets a lot of run, but I think it's possible.
He's also
I think he probably gets
10K.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he probably gets 20 touches, which for a regular running back is full force. For CMC is not necessarily full force.
Sure.
But I still don't know that I want him on this slate where we have no value and a ton of other great running backs that I want to play for 8K.
True.
Neil, I just want to say we got to step aside and get out of here. But Neil, your hypothetical poll about Derrick Henry was spectacular. I don't know if we have time to get into that, but it was amazing. And people were voting to lose money and get tackled run over by Derrick Henry was amazing. Math is another. Here will be math.
I thought about capping it at 49 and like running a legit poll, but then I was like, this is just too funny if I do 50 and see minimum 50. What's your number, Dean? How many Deans to tackle Derrick Henry?
I mean, it's either 6 to 19 or 20 to 49. Do I feel the pain of the other clones?
You don't. You only feel your own pain.
Oh, I think the safest is 20 to 49.
What pain do the clones feel? What pain do the clones feel then?
They only feel their own pain, but they all disappear at the end anyway.
Could you describe
I could get
like
Derrick
Henry
seconds, down.
Neil?
How big is the space? I feel like if it's like a gauntlet,
it's a football.
If it's like well, I mean, but like, is he lining up under center? Like, how much I got to cover the whole? Does he got an O line, or is it just straight up the gauntlet? Because if it's like him running at me in clones, I feel like I could do it in 3 to 5 clones.
Oh no.
It's Derrick Henry gets the ball at the 50-yard line. You have to line up at least 10 yards away. You get $1 million if you can stop him, but you can also make as many clones of yourself as you want. You get $20,000 docked off of your $1 million prize for each clone you make. How many clones do you make to try to stop Derrick Henry?
I would make, if it's only 20K each clone, I'm taking 10 to 15 clones just to make sure I get it.
Smart.
How do you stack them up? Like, do you have like one every 5 yards? I think that's the most important question. Like how do you align defensively? And also the most important question, Neil, actually, how did you come up with this? I don't know if you're a gummy guy. I don't know where this came from.
I'm a THC seltzer guy, not a gummy guy, really. But I just think of these things when I'm watching football. I was thinking how much it would suck to have Derrick Henry running full speed at me, and then I thought, how many of me would it take to take down Derrick Henry? So I don't know. I just think of these things. I like hypotheticals. I'm a fan of hypotheticals in general.
Played some linebacker in high school. I'm ready for it.
But you didn't face Derrick Henry.
Were you against? Have you seen Derrick Henry's high school stats?
Yeah. Did you? I was just going to say if that was my high school team, it probably would have been even more ridiculous. Like, we were great, and I mean, I don't know how true that is necessarily. Like, where I live is stupidly good at football. But still, only 1 million overall people in the entire province. I can't imagine we'd be matching up against Derrick Henry's football team very well.
All right. Tim, did you have a thought on this? Or are you even paying attention? I don't know. You might have checked out 5 minutes ago.
No, I've been sitting here playing with the Sims.
Fair enough.
Trying to understand why there's so much Lad McConkey in Sims. So
yeah, well, I'm sure Erik and Neil will get into that amongst other things. Myself, TJ, Tim, we do wish you good luck this week. Go ahead and win something. But TJ, back to the producer booth. Thanks for stepping in. Appreciate you jumping on, TJ, for the first portion. But myself and Tim, we are out of here. And Erik's going to take it away right now.
Shout out, of course, as always, to the People Show. One thing, Neil, I don't think Lad McConkey could tackle Derrick Henry. So maybe that's something that we dock him for as we get into this. But, of course, welcome to GPP Final Takes, a.k.a. GPP Final Takes. I'm your host, Erik Beimfohr, joined by my good friend, Neil Orfield. And if you've never been with us for the show, welcome. But, of course, if you have, you know that we're not necessarily going to go game by game, and we're not necessarily going to go position by position. We're going to try to hit as many questions as you have. So make sure you post those in the chat. We'll bounce around from subject to subject. But what we're going to try to do, as the name notes, is cover all of the final takes for tournaments. That could be, certain positions. That will be some games. That will be, certain ownership aspects. It'll be kind of everything that you need to know to unpack this slate for your tournament lineups. Yes, be in the chat. I am in a hotel room in Oklahoma City. If you're in Oklahoma City, hit me up on Twitter or in Discord or somewhere. We can go get a THC seltzer like Neil likes to drink, but going to the Thunder Warriors game tonight. Fun. And Neil, really quickly, since we're already down the rabbit hole of silly conversations, I went down to get coffee from the coffee shop this morning in the hotel, and we specifically booked the hotel that I learned that usually the opposing teams stay at when they come to play the Thunder, because it's right across the street from the Thunder arena. And I went down, and there was a couple Warriors staffers in line with me. They wear name tags, by the way, which I thought was kind of peculiar. That's how I knew, right? I wasn't just like, oh, look, there's a guy in a Warriors t-shirt or whatever. The guy has, he's a video coordinator or whatever. Then my buddy who came with me goes down, and he goes, Pajemski's in the lobby. He's like, Brandon Pajemski's in the lobby. And I'm like, I missed him by 5 minutes. Like, Jerry Stackhouse is down there. Pajemski is down there. All these Warriors people. I got to see the guy who cuts up the videos every night after the game, and all the cool guys are down there in the lobby. So if that is a precursor for how my NFL DFS lineups are going to go today, maybe trust a little bit more of Neil. But every week we try to intro into, what is the fit, right? What's the defining factor? When you open up this slate, what is the thing, the play, the position, whatever? And this week it's tough, Neil. And I think that's actually my takeaway from it, is that there's no value. There's no, even the good plays, from a point per dollar perspective, we compare them to most other weeks. are like pretty weak, right? like the matchups are bad or the projection's not that good. There's nothing that's like so stand out on this slate. Christian McCaffrey could be right at 8,000, but it's his first game back in a long time. Alvin Kamara seems good, but the Saints are a total disaster, right? Like there's so many flaws in all of the air quotes top plays, and the value options to afford these potential top plays are like almost non-existent. So how are you kind of thinking about that like roster construction element, right, as it pertains to the point per dollar plays and how you put a whole lineup together?
Yeah, it's really tough on this slate. Like you said, that was my like writing up the entire slate, like going through game by game. I was like, there's just nothing that I really like on this slate. The players that I actually like are all like 8,000 plus. Like it's all the most expensive guys, which it's obvious. Like, oh, you want to play Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, but like really, those are like the players who are cheaper are just worse. Like they're just not as good of plays. So I'm with you. I guess the key to the slate, I think, is I still want to play kind of stars and scrubsy for large field tournaments at least. So I think the key is just finding value that hits, and there's no really comfortable value. We did get word that Jalen McMillan is playing, so kind of getting a little bit easier with the Tampa guys open up some slightly more comfortable value, but in general, we are really hurting for value on this slate. So I think the key is just going to be kind of guessing right on mixing in. If you're playing a lot of lineups, just mix and match kind of your different value plays is the way I generally approach. I guess some people will just choose their favorite value and just run that guy a bunch of times and hope they get it right. I'm more inclined to play a lot of the expensive guys that I like and then just mix and match value that doesn't feel super comfortable, and hope that I get the right value piece in the right lineup.
So let's talk about a lot of those potential value options, right? Because that's what people are probably thinking about when they start. They want to play all the studs, and some of the studs are a little bit more easy to understand, a little easier to understand, and probably takes a little less of us discussing. So let's start with some of those wide receiver values. The chat mentioned A.D. Mitchell. Of course, Michael Pittman is out. A.D. Mitchell, a shout out to the the fantasy points guys that they developed the ASS metric, pardon my French, but about separation. And A.D. Mitchell, I believe, is atop that entire metric or near the top. Granted, not a lot of routes for A.D. Mitchell, but there's some intrigue, second round pick for the Colts with Joe Flacco. Is he your favorite value wide receiver option? Is it Jalen McMillan? Is it, am I going to be able to talk you into going back to Parker Washington again? What are we looking at in terms of your top value wide receivers?
I think A.D. Mitchell is probably the one that I plan to get to the most of as of right now. But I'm not super comfortable with it. Like I don't want to make it sound like he's a slam dunk. It's like, okay, the sample size we have of A.D. Mitchell without one of Josh Downs or Michael Pittman was weeks 1 and 2 without Josh Downs. He did run like nearly 70% of routes. I think he saw 9 targets over those 2 games. So he did have some usage in the games where Josh Downs missed. So we're kind of making the assumption, and I'm making the assumption that he's going to have a similar role with Michael Pittman out. He's going to step in. He's going to run hopefully 70% of the routes, see 4 targets maybe against really tough Bills defense. So it's not like a really awesome value. I would love to talk about some other value pieces and hopefully find something else, because I'm not super comfortable with it. It's going to come down to where the ownership comes in at, and I'm pulling that up right now. I want to see if that has changed. I'm guessing that the ownership has come up over time, but maybe not with the addition of the Tampa Bay value, which was not a sure thing. That they were both doubtful, Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan. So maybe it doesn't get quite as crazy. Let me see. Coming in at 13%, I think that's reasonable. I think I'm probably right there. Do you have an issue with 13%?
No, I don't have an issue. I think it's like, that's my struggle with this whole slate, right? Kind of in the intro, is everything feels like about efficient, there doesn't feel to me like maybe we'll get to Alvin Kamara, but even then it's Alvin Kamara. He could catch like 12 passes in any single game, even though I'm not that hopeful for him in the Saints. That's how I feel about A.D. Mitchell. Like, the field's not going absolutely nuts over him, and I don't think that they should, but also he's kind of the player that could, like you said, he gets 4 or 5 targets, but that's 3 catches for 80 and a touchdown. And that's really all this isn't the slate where like you got to pick between a bunch of 3K guys and because somebody's going to hit. This is the slate where please just anybody down there just have a decent game. And that's going to probably win you some tournaments. So I think it's just about right for A.D. Mitchell. I think he's my favorite. Joe Flacco, I know the matchup is bad. The problem is there aren't really many good matchups for any of these cheap guys. And that's my biggest struggle. Is there anybody that is standing out that's maybe not like projecting as well, or the role's not as good? Again, from kind of, doesn't have to be the 3K necessarily on DraftKings, but just a little bit more affordable wide receivers that you are actually a little bit more hopeful about their matchup, you know, their quarterback play, whatever. You're a little bit more excited about them, even if you have to pay a little bit more.
I mean, Parker Washington, as you mentioned, I'll call with some names. I just want to respond to somebody in chat asked, is AD Mitchell going to run from the slot? So far, about 66% out wide, 34% from the slot this season. I think Josh Downs a little bit more likely to get the slot work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think he's going to run that much from the slot. I mean, Jalen McMillan, I think looks like a fine play, not like a spot you really want to target against the Niners. I think it's they're a like mediocre kind of defense against the pass so far this year, maybe slightly above average defense. So it's not a great spot, but I think Jalen McMillan is maybe more likely than AD Mitchell to see like 7 or 8 targets. I think he had 7 targets in the last game he was active without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So they seem to, you know, kind of prioritize him of their wide receivers. So I would say he's a little bit more comfortable to me than AD Mitchell, and not getting crazy high ownership. Parker Washington, as you said, like the Vikings defense, I still think it's a pretty good defense, but they've been struggling against the pass in recent weeks a bit. So I think Parker Washington, you know, given his price tag, is another viable, not super comfortable play. So I mean, the answer is no. There's nobody that I'm like, yes, I really love that guy. That is the one that I trust of the players that are like 4,000 or cheaper, which is why I'm just planning to kind of mix and match them. Do you feel more comfortable with any of them?
Nope. It's kind of, and normally I do, right? You know, me, we've talked for many weeks now. I have fairly strong conviction generally about some of these value guys. And today, you know, shout out to my guy, Parker Washington, who not a great leaper in terms of timing his jumps. I don't know if you watched that game last week. He had the like long bomb, and I was like, does he know? Like, did he know when the quarterback threw the ball? It looks like he just jumped and didn't realize that he was about 4 seconds early on the leap. I don't have any real. So there's 2 things that stand out to me when that kind of happens. Is, of course, for you, you know, from an MME perspective, I think the mix and match idea that you're bringing up is perfectly spot on. For me, more a single entry, 3 entry max type player. I want to find, maybe our good friend Jordan Cooper would call it, a vomit stack, right? Like just a kind of cheap offense, maybe pair it with the quarterback, or pair it with when we'll get to the injury news as it is rolling in, and we got 15 more minutes before all inactives and actives and inactives come in. Feel free to post those in the chat, of course, and we'll catch up on anything that we miss. We'll talk about Brian Robinson as well, who was another, yet again, every single week, apparently Brian Robinson's going to get ruled out over the weekend. I like, you know, but I don't want to play Mac Jones, Neil. I don't want to play, you know, Will Levis. I don't want to play some of these guys. So that's where my difficulty becomes. Do you have any of those kind of just like suck it up, play the cheap offense, right? Play the Mac Jones, Parker Washington, play the Drake May, Keyshawn Boutte, you know, I don't know. Right. It's like, I don't even like any of these cheap offenses, but it does feel like that's the easiest way to kind of get your value in one swing, right? One quarterback wide receiver stack. There's your cheap guys. Now you can afford whatever you want in your lineup.
Yeah. I mean, Mac Jones would be the one that kind of stands out as like, if you want to go uber cheap, obviously Mac Jones and Parker Washington, about as cheap as you're going to find for a stack on any NFL slate. So if you want to go like super vomity, super cheap, you can kind of make a case for it. Like they should probably be having to throw it a lot. Their defense is so bad. The Vikings offense so good. Like the Vikings are probably going to be scoring a lot of points. But as a result, they should be throwing quite a bit. So Mac Jones, just from a volume perspective, and again, in recent weeks, at least the Vikings defense has not been as good against the pass. So you can certainly make a case for that one, and that would probably be the vomitiest stack I would go to. If you want to be a little bit more comfortable, but not quite as cheap, somebody said in chat, yeah, Herbert and Ladd McConkey is just makes sense from a, you know, Ladd McConkey, he's 5,900. He's not like super great value, but the stack overall is pretty cheap, with Justin Herbert being just 5,200. So I think as far as like comfortable vomit stacks, that's probably the one I'm most comfortable with. And I would be more inclined, I think, more often I would just run that solo stack instead of including Will Dissly, because I think Will Dissly is going to be mega chalk and he's going to be in all of the Justin Herbert lineups. So I think I would rather leave him out in that stack, as dangerous as that may feel. How about you? Do you like any cheap stacks?
If fading Will Dissly as chalk is dangerous, then consider DFS dead to me, because I understand the Will Dissly thing, but like, we joked about Jake Bobo and being so slow and unathletic. Like, Will Dissly is actually that. Like, the guy ran like a 5.2 40. He's catching a bunch of balls. I get it, but I love Justin Herbert. I think is probably the best. I know it's $800 more on DraftKings than Mac Jones, but I think that's pretty negligible. Well, if you just take a step back and you think about the Chargers offense, it's not amazing, but the situation is far better than the Jaguars. Without Trevor Lawrence, without Christian Kirk, traded away their left tackle right during the season. It's pretty bleak for Jacksonville. Whereas Herbert, he seems to be a little unleashed, a little bit more, at least in the recent weeks. Ladd is fine type of a thing, but we also know that Ladd has a little bit more like ceiling breaking upside. I would rather eat some Ladd ownership than I would eat the Will Dissly stuff. My kind of similar example, very similar actually to yours, where it's not really value, but the quarterback is pretty cheap, and then this actually another rookie wide receiver is similarly priced to Ladd, is the Bears, with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze being my favorite Bears wide receiver. Look, Caleb, it's gross. If you've watched this Giants-Panthers game, maybe that's enough football for you today. Don't watch Caleb Williams go out there and try to play, because you had enough. But the Patriots defense is bad, and it's bad against the run. But I like to just play guys against bad defenses, period. And look, if Caleb can't get it done here, it's going to similar to Daniel Jones against the Panthers. It might, it is what it is. But I would rather play into that matchup than play Mac Jones into the Vikings matchup. And I can get Rome Odunze again as like these like 5K-ish guys. It's not like value, but it's still helpful. Maybe I have to play another value piece from somewhere else, but that can kind of be my core stack that gives me some salary savings. It's also leverage off of DeAndre Swift, which is pretty nice. He's going to be pretty popular. So I think what I'm getting at, what you're getting at, that kind of range is probably the most interesting to me. Like a 5-ish to 6-ish K quarterback with some like 4 to 6K wide receiver. It's not like value, but it's kind of on this slate. It's almost like value.
It's value. Yeah, exactly right. Like, as far as this slate goes, you don't have the mega value, so you got to kind of settle for that. It's pretty good value, I'd say. The 5K range quarterback with the cheaper receiver. Tyrone Tracy, in case you missed it, 32-yard touchdown. Finally, a touchdown for the Giants today.
Thank the Lord. Brian Daboll is trying to keep his job, and Daniel Jones is trying to keep his job for the rest.
Did you notice? Underdog came out and had to announce that Daniel Jones still starting to start the second half. I was like, man, that's not an alert you want to see if you played a lot of Giants today.
Overseas against the worst team in the NFL, and we have to be alerted that you're still starting to come out in the second half. Tough scenes for the old Giants. But a similar question as to what we were getting at here from Todd. How do you feel about Addison? We can talk a little bit about the Vikings. That game's pretty interesting because of the fact that Mac Jones is popping, Parker Washington's popping, and clearly we think the Vikings are going to score a bunch of points. Aaron Jones really popping at the running back position, but what are you doing with, maybe an Addison pivot off of like the DeAndre, again, he mentioned, we'll talk about DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins being popular. And then maybe is this just kind of a way to play this game a little bit differently, get some, again, our quasi savings with an Addison, or you just want to go up to Jefferson, right? Hawkinson. What do you think about that tier and the Vikings overall?
Yeah. So Addison is one that, in my slate write-up, I didn't even write up Jordan Addison, but he was one that I like seriously thought about. It's like the matchup is so good. The reason I didn't is just he doesn't project that well. You add TJ Hawkinson into the mix, it's like he's not going to have really an elite role, but it's such a good matchup that, and he's still a pretty strong receiver, I'd say. So no issue if you want to play Addison. For me, I probably only get there in game stacks. Either I have Sam Darnold, or if I'm doing a Mac Jones stack, maybe I could include Jordan Addison there. I don't think I'm going to play him as a one-off, but yeah, I think he's fine. Like, he's just a fine 5K receiver in a solid enough matchup. Hawkinson is sort of interesting to me. He's one like nobody I've talked about really has any interest in Hawkinson. To me, it's like, well, he already over 52.5% route participation last week in his first game. I would kind of expect that role continues to expand as he, kind of gets his legs under him. Maybe he's not fully healthy yet, but he also saw, I want to say 4 or 5 targets in that game. So I kind of think that kind of promising the first game usage for TJ Hawkinson. He's still only 4,700. The tough thing with Hawkinson is I actually think it's kind of a deep slate as far as tight ends go. Like you have some pretty nice pay up options, reasonable pay down options. So he kind of gets squeezed there, but I think he's fine. Again, probably better in a game stack. In general, I mean, Aaron Jones is, probably the best running back value on the slate. He's only 6,700. Awesome role, awesome matchup. Like everything looks great for Aaron Jones. He'll be chalky, but I think the chalk is warranted there. I think I'm probably going to eat it. Probably going to be right with the field on Aaron Jones. And then Justin Jefferson is a great pay up option. The only real worry there, I shouldn't say the only worry, even in a great matchup, could fail, but he's probably going to do well against the Jaguars. The biggest worry is just that it's going to be a blowout and he doesn't really touch the ball in the second half. But I think I'm willing to kind of take that chance and run some Jefferson out there. Obviously, if you have the concern about a potential blowout, you'd want to have a Jaguars player in that lineup also, bringing it back and kind of hope that they can score, keep it closer. But yeah, I love the Vikings today, and I don't think I'm just being a homer. I think they have one of the best possible matchups.
That is definitely true. You are not being a homer. It's hard to get away from any Vikings expert, even in a again, not 150 maxer. It's hard to get it. We talk about this a lot of slates, right? Where especially on a very, very difficult slate like this one, I think you said you called Addison he's fine. That's this slate. It's fine, right? Exactly. Everybody, you're just it's fine. It's fine. You don't hate any of them. You see the you see the perks, but no one you're maybe Aaron Jones is maybe the guy where you're just yeah, okay, this is pretty good. I feel really good clicking him in. And that's the Vikings thing for me. Is I do want to default. I know I'm gonna have to do something uncomfortable in my lineup, right? Like you said, Mac Jones to Parker Washington or Justin Herbert to Lab McConkey or some crap, right? AD Mitchell. I'm going to have to do something uncomfortable. But after that, let's jam the guys on the teams that are going to score a bunch of points on a slate that's maybe not going to have so many points to be scored. When that happens, shout out to our friend Davis Maddock. He was nominating we have an ever-changing question in the expert survey, and he was nominating, and I loved the fact that he nominated this. Is this a week for 2 tight ends, deflexing a tight end specifically on DraftKings? How much of that is going to make its way into your lineup? Because you hit on some of the best, we're talking about these values are tight ends on this slate. So is that a way that you're going to maybe try to manufacture some savings in your lineups by double punting, or not even just double punting, right? K. Dotton looks pretty darn good. He's not a value, air quotes value, but 12 targets is 12 targets. What are you doing with maybe your tight end exposure today?
So I'll start by saying, and this might shock you, Erik, I use an optimizer. I'm not hand building my many lineups. And there are in some optimizers, there's you can click a button that says don't use 2 tight ends, or don't use tight end in flex. I've never clicked that button. I don't really care who ends up in my flex. If a player projects well enough to end up in my flex and he's a tight end, I don't really care what position he plays. So it's never been an issue for me. It's never been something that I people ask that question all the time, who do you get to the most? Who are you getting to the most in the flex? And I'm I don't really give any thought to how much I'm getting of running back versus wide receiver versus tight end in the flex. But I imagine it's going to be a lot today. So just based on how bad the value is outside of the tight end position, and even the pay up option. So you got George Kittle, K. Dotton, Travis Kelce, they all project as well as some of the top wide receivers on the slate. So as a result, I think I'm going to get to a lot of 2 tight end just because the tight ends really are some of the best values on the slate. But it's not something I'm forcing. It's just something that I think is going to happen because they all project so well point per dollar. How about you?
Yeah, that's actually a phenomenal explanation in terms of, right, how the lineup actually comes together. And then, so I'll give you you mentioned you use an optimizer. I do as well. And then I kind of hand build off of, I could also start, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes there's a play that's not going to pop in the optimizer that I'm this leverage play or this flag plant guy that I put in and then optimize around it. And I just kind of see what it's giving me. Like that's the way that I get a sense for what my opponents are going to do, how the slate's looking. Like, and a lot of the times on these weeks, it will pop up with a tight end in the flex, and I'm just like, okay, that's interesting. That's good to know. And then I may build around it. So I'm very interested in the double tight end thing. I will say there are a lot of good running backs though, still that I like, and it's sacrificing one of them maybe in the flex to get a Will Dissly in there or something feels a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm struggling with that one a bit. At tight end, I just want to kind of cover that, and then we're going to hit some of you guys' questions. There's some good questions about some of these running backs and stuff, but I just want to touch on tight end just a little bit more. Do you have like a favorites? What is your exposure kind of looking like at tight end? I just wanted to hit Cade Otton again because I think we should discuss him a little bit. He's not maybe as owned as I thought he was going to be, but again, I think it's he's the second highest owned tight end right next to Will Dissly, which is really hilarious. George Kittle, Cade Otton, and Will Dissly as the highest owned tight ends. But he's another guy, like you mentioned, George Kittle. These guys are projecting as good or better than the wide receivers at their prices. So how are you kind of prioritizing, right? If you are only playing one, or even if you can only get two, right? You can only get one of them into your lineup. So how are you kind of racking and stacking the tight ends?
Kittle, probably my favorite. Just he's been so awesome. He's so boom bust. He's always benefited from when one of the San Francisco stars is out. Now, obviously, get McCaffrey back for this one, but Ayuk out for the year. So Kittle, I think it's just going to have really strong usage for the rest of the year. He's always going to be a boom bust player. But I think I like him quite a bit on this slate. Cade Otton right there. I mean, he's been targeted like 10 times per game for the past few weeks. Apparently without Mike Evans.
Chip out of Cade Otton. Yeah, what?
I had no idea. Yeah, I did not know that this was within the range of outcomes for Cade Otton. Anytime I clicked the name in best ball, it was like I guess I need a tight end. He fell to me. I need a stack. Here's Baker and Cade Otton. I guess I'll make it work there. Of course, both of them just smashing. So I'm glad they fell to me sometimes. But I was never enthusiastic about it. And now, I don't know, 50. He seems fine. Just given the usage, he seems to be the favorite. It could be a little bit fluky, and now you get Jalen McMillan back, so maybe he's into it. They do have I think just one game with both of them active and Godwin and Evans out. So I don't know. We have a really small sample size of that scenario, but Baker seems to love and trust Cade Otton, so I think he's a pretty strong play. Kelsey would fall behind those two for me as far as the pay up options, but still his usage has been awesome without Rashee Rice, and it even continued last week with DeAndre Hopkins taking on a bigger role. So I think Kelsey totally fine. And then from there, it's Taysom Hill, 9 carries, 9 targets over the past 2 weeks. So he's and I don't think he's had any passing game usage over the past 2 weeks, but of course that's always something that he could do. So I think Taysom, just given his Swiss Army knife role and that the entire offense is hurt, I think Taysom looks pretty, except for Kamara, I guess. Taysom looks really good. So those are the 4 targets for me, were George Kittle, Cade Otton, Travis Kelce, Taysom Hill, and then behind those 4, I actually think Dalton Kincaid. This looks like a pretty strong Dalton Kincaid week, just from a perspective of Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper both out. It is a second best matchup for tight ends in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, and he's actually had pretty nice usage. It feels like he is due for some positive regression at some point, just based on how much he's out on the field. So I think with 2 of their top receivers out in a great matchup against the Colts, I think Dalton Kincaid looks like a pretty strong option. Maybe even could have made that top group for me. If I'm paying down, I think Hunter Henry looks just like a strong option. He's, I want to say, 3,900 on DraftKings.
Dare I say he's fine?
He's totally fine. He's totally fine. Yeah, exactly right. And then it's I don't know, just a bunch of Juwan Johnson. What are your thoughts on Juwan Johnson? Because I've had conversations with people. I think he's a reasonable play. He's going to be running enough routes. I think he ran 2/3 of the routes last week, and he's cheap enough. I sort of think he's viable, but I'm not super confident. What do you think of Juwan Johnson?
That's exactly how I would put it. I think I do think he's viable. I've been a little skittish on him. They play a lot of Foster Moreau. Way too much. Speaking of Will Dissly, the Foster Moreau, Will Dissly amount of routes run this season is certainly wasn't on my bingo card, and that's really been taken away from Juwan. But like you said, he ran 2/3 routes. He also got hospital balled like poor Chris Olave did on a play. He came back, of course, but he took a pretty gnarly hit. Derek Carr seems to do that. Also, did you see Michael Thomas like rage tweeting all throughout the game?
I think I saw like one of or a couple of the tweets, but did not go back and read all of the Michael Thomas rage tweets.
It's epic. It's not quite Antonio Brown losing his mind on the internet, but Michael Thomas was absolutely losing it on not pulling any punches about his feelings with Derek Carr, which I think maybe tells you something about the Saints. But Juwan, I think, is just going to have to be out. They just don't have why just like MVS, dude. Like, who is going to play? Who is going to run routes? I think that they have to play Juwan. If you're willing to click Will Dissly, I think you have to be willing to click Juwan. Maybe it's a little bit, let's do something with the Falcons on, Bijan on the other side or Cousins stacks where Juwan really can get elevated from a usage perspective. But they just have to play this guy. Like, it just is what it is. I do much prefer Taysom for just a little bit more. Like you said, I think the role is just so much stronger from a fantasy perspective on the Saints. He's my favorite. Saint, again, no Jamal Williams. I think that's other than Jamal Williams got downgraded again, and Kendre is back on IR. Jordan Mims is around, but I think Taysom's just going to be a huge part of the Saints yet again. I just wanted to shout out your Kincaid call because he was the other guy that I was going to bring up. The price has steadily fallen, other than the random FanDuel 4K week that we had. The price has steadily fallen, and I think the role is actually elevating a little bit now, particularly without Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman, as you said. That like there's just only so many targets Matt Collins and these guys can take. I also think that game is a sneaky good game stack where if it does, like if Flacco can, I know it's a bad spot, like you mentioned for Downs and AD Mitchell, but if Flacco can punch back in that, or the Colts can punch back at all in that spot, you get a much more condensed Bills offense this week. We already know it's condensed on the Colts side. So if I can get this condensed targets on both sides, pretty good potential, passing on both sides. That one really stands out to me from a game stack perspective. And I think Kincaid's a nice piece as a part of that game stack. I want to hit some questions just on tight end. Donnie asked, got any Goddard for you? Goddard back this week for the Eagles, of course, against the fighting Cooper rushes on the other side for the Cowboys. Any Goddard?
Have we gotten confirmation on whether Jalen Hurts is playing? Because I saw there were reports that he was probably not going to play. And what time is that game? Should we have gotten that by now?
That's this afternoon, right?
Okay. So there's the possibility that we're not going to have Jalen Hurts for the game, which obviously doesn't help with Dallas Goedert. I'd rather have Jalen Hurts in there if I'm playing any Dallas Goedert. I think he's viable. Like it fits right into that. Like he's mid-range. I think he's 4,500 if I'm remembering correctly. So he's not cheap enough where it's just like a slam dunk play. Jalen Hurts being out would obviously hurt. But I think probably going to be a little overlooked to the point of whoever brought it up in chat. Like I do think, not a lot of people playing Dallas Goedert. He's still a totally viable third option in the passing game for the Eagles. So if you want to go there, certainly I think it makes some sense.
Max asked about Hunter Henry. Neil touched on him a little bit. He is in our he's fine. There's a big old category of he's fine, and Hunter Henry's in there. I mean, he's maybe a little better than fine. I'm maybe not giving him enough credit, but the matchup is very mediocre at best against the Bears. I mentioned last week that I don't like to play guys against the Bears, and then who was it? Did they play Arizona
James
last week?
Conner.
Yeah, Connor just runs it down there, absolutely right down their throat. So maybe that's better for Ramondre, but Hunter Henry probably projects for the most targets on his offense at tight end, which is pretty rare. Another tight end, Freiermuth. That's a game that maybe we should touch on really quickly that I'm pretty excited about, actually. I know you and I are a little bit more in the camp of the occasional cornerback does matter. Marshawn Lattimore got traded to the Washington Commanders, but he is out today. He's not playing, which has me a little bit excited for George Pickens, actually at wide receiver. But I think, as good as the Steelers defense is, Washington scores on everybody, and the Steelers have been solid with Russell Wilson back there. Najee looking much better, which is crazy. What a weird Will Dissly and Cade Otton and Najee Harris. What is going on? But the Steelers look pretty good with Russ there. We know Jaden Daniels is going to score, and there's no Brian Robinson, right, in that backfield. So what do you think about this game? Go ahead, TJ. You're on mute.
And I'm muted like an absolute amateur. One thing I wanted to mention Jalen Hurts is some guy named Bob Pompiani, who seems relatively reputable. He's got a lot of followers, said Kenny Pickett is in line to start. But that's the only place that has said it, and Hurts is not on the injury report at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only report that I had seen about calling Hurts into question. And again, this guy I've never heard of before, this Bob Pompiano, but also I don't know, has a lot of followers. So I want to hear somebody else report. I want to hear from somebody who is a little bit more reputable. Not that he's irreputable, but I've never heard of him. Somebody I've heard of. I'd like to have Schefter come out and tell us whether Jalen Hurts is playing. But at this point, we've got nothing else.
I'm going to treat it as Jalen Hurts is playing, but we'll get to the Eagles Cowboys game in a little bit. The running back who also is body bagging me in best ball to our continued terrible season long takes that I've had. We'll get to Saquon Barkley in a little bit, who looks pretty good no matter who is playing quarterback for the Eagles. But just mentioned the Steelers Washington game. This one kind of stands out. We talked a little bit about Bills Colts, right? Vikings Jags, but this one stands out to me as maybe not going to be super popular, but like alpha wide receivers on each side, maybe some value running backs and an Austin Eckler, right? There's some intriguing pieces, I think, in this game, even though no Steelers game like seems awesome, but I think it has some pretty strong fantasy appeal.
I mean, Jaden Daniels just is great every week. He has, I think, 8 games so far where he's not gotten hurt and been able to play beyond the first quarter. And he's got 19.9 fantasy points at a minimum in 7 of those 8 games. He's just been awesome as a fantasy asset. So yeah, you can always play some Jaden Daniels, even in a tough matchup with the Steelers. Terry McLaurin, it just every week goes kind of overlooked, and I think he's going to go overlooked again this week. So yeah, I think it's like he's going overlooked. It's also a really tough matchup with the Steelers. So it's not like I'm going all in on it, but I think that you should mix in, one of those if you're playing 20 lineups, maybe mix in a Jaden Daniels to Terry McLaurin stack. Austin Eckler becomes playable, I'd say, with Brian Robinson Jr. out. Still not like a huge priority for me, just because we didn't see like that great of usage with Brian Robinson out last time. So to me, it's still just another he's fine type play. Honestly, we're lacking value. I guess he's relatively cheap, 5,800 on DraftKings. And then, Noah Brown has kind of he's another one of those cheap wide receivers that it's not really exciting, but usage, over 70% route participation in the last game. They've been using him more and more every week. So I think Noah Brown is playable. Zach Ertz, 45 targets. He's getting targeted 5 times per game this season. So Zach Ertz is playable as a cheap tight end. And then on the other side, I mean, that is obviously the better side of the game is the Steelers side of the game, just because it's a much better matchup.
Which is hilarious, by the way, absolutely the Russell Wilson led Najee Harris Pittsburgh Steelers against Jaden Daniels in Washington. And we're both like, yeah, pretty excited for the Steelers and not so much for Washington.
Yeah. Najee Harris, I think Najee is actually a legit good play. So maybe I'm just trying to say this because we're calling everybody fine. So I want to say I think he's a little bit better than fine, just because the usage is really strong. He's 6,200, and it's a great matchup with Washington, who's actually been kind of a run funnel this year. So Najee Harris to me is one of the better running back values on the slate. As you said, George Pickens, I love the upside for George Pickens. I think he looks like a really strong play. Funnily, I don't think I'm going to get to Russ. Maybe I'm overlooking something by not getting to Russ, but I'm not super excited about playing Russ or Freiermuth. I didn't even write up. Maybe you could play Freiermuth, but I don't think I'm getting there. So really, I guess it just comes down to Najee Harris and George Pickens mostly for me on the Steelers side of things. Are you getting to more from the Steelers, or how do you like this game?
No, that's exactly how I feel. Pat Freiermuth, I thought when Justin Fields was playing, started to show some potential fantasy viability. I think when they played the Colts, I like a dum-dum, of course, played Fields to Pickens, and it was Fields to Freiermuth that won everybody all the money that week. And Russ just, man, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I understand Russell Wilson. Okay. That's not a guy that I can get into his head, but Freiermuth, he's kind of a deep shot type guy, right? Russ is, he's taking some shots down the field. He is, of course, managing the game, but you're not getting a bunch of the 4-yard hitch routes from Pat Freiermuth. Let's just check it down and take our first down with Russell Wilson. He's got what, 2 or 3 targets? 2 targets, 3 targets in the Russell Wilson games. It's not awesome. I would just rather play George Pickens or, as you mentioned, Najee Harris. Also wanted to mention, with Brian Robinson out last week, we were pretty high on Austin Eckler, but you mentioned that the workload wasn't as good as expected. I think that's just how it's going to be with Washington. Chris Rodriguez, shout out Chris Rodriguez, stepped back in and was getting significantly more work than I ever expected. 11 carries for Chris Rodriguez. 11 like we were worried about Jeremy McNichols, and it was Chris Rodriguez getting 11 carries for 52 yards for Washington last week. So I just think you're going to play all 3 of those guys in a tough matchup. I'd rather, like we said, there's other running backs I really, really do like on this slate. Let's hit some more questions because I haven't probably enough questions. Dave asked about Ertz, and Neil hit on him. I think he could be the best Washington play. Actually, he's up there. I actually think Noah Brown and Zach Ertz might be my favorite Washington guys. So, Dave, I think Ertz is definitely in play. I don't mind it on FanDuel. He's a little more of a DraftKings PPR guy, but catch and fall down in the end zone on FanDuel is fine for Ertz. Let's see here. Let me just double check. Shout out to the chat for Steve mentioning Tom Pelissero, saying, despite there has been some question marks swirling around the team, Jalen Hurts is good to go and he will play today. So we should expect Jalen Hurts a little bit. Erik wants to know, can you define fine for us today? No, we can't. That's part of the problem.
If he makes it into my lineup, I'm not going to change the lineup because he's in it. It's how I would define fine.
I like that. Yes, I like that. Samuel asks, a value wide receiver we did not get to, but on the Chargers side, since we do like Justin Herbert, going to play any DJ Chark at 3,400 on DraftKings?
I don't think so. Just because Quentin Johnston is back. So I think DJ Chark a little bit too thin for me. Has he played? What am I? I'm not seeing him in as running any routes so far this year. Maybe
he was inactive last. He was activated from injured reserve last week, but was not active for the game. He is not on the injury report, but that game is this afternoon. I have no idea if he's going to play.
Yeah, I would say probably not going to DJ Chark just because we do have Ladd McConkey ahead of him, Josh Palmer ahead of him, and Quentin Johnston ahead of him. So I think he's at best a wide receiver 4.
Are you going to play any QJ in your Herbert teams, Quentin Johnston?
If I don't get any, I'd be fine with that. He's a fine play. Like if he lands in a few of my lineups, I'd say fine. If he lands in 20% of my lineups, I'm going to dock his projection because I don't want to have a ton of QJ. I'm not like really a big fan of playing QJ, but he's 4,900. He's been really good this year, so can't really argue with it. I think I'll have a little bit maybe, but not a priority for me. How about you?
Yeah, this is one of those where I keep saying this and he keeps doing it, and like at a certain point, am I just being a stubborn fool, or am I like actually just right? It's like never wrong, just early type of a thing. Like he's hitting on some really fluky, like big long play. Like, he's not like dominating targets. Even last week with what did he have? 120 yards. Sorry, I should have had this up. 118 yards, 5 targets, man. He caught a 66-yard bomb. Can he do that? Sure. It's the Titans. Like I would not be shocked if he has another big play, but he requires a long kind of fluky touchdown. Probably. He's never had more than 6 targets in a game this year. He's definitely not the wide receiver 1 on his team. So I'd rather not. Okay. I would not begrudge someone for playing Justin Herbert to Quentin Johnston or just playing Quentin Johnston, but I just try. I don't want to really want to play those guys. That's just my personal stance.
We got a question. Sorry, because we're talking about QJ, I kind of think it's sort of the same vein. Fire Martinez has thoughts on MVS for New Orleans. Entire wide receiver core is hurt and they have to throw the ball. I don't want to. Like he's another like could happen. Obviously, MVS could score a long touchdown, should be out there. But last week, even without Olave and Shaheed, just 48.5% route participation, only saw 1 target. And I don't think we didn't play him when he was on the Chiefs and he was min-priced. Now he's on the Saints and min-priced. I'm not like really excited to play MVS. You can play him. Like I think he's fits that mold of like, I guess, but he's certainly not a priority for me.
It might be valuable to rank the cheapies because the very next two questions that came in. Thoughts on Mingo and thoughts on McMillan.
I think everybody is on the same path here. We're looking for, and that's why we kind of let in with it. But let's go ahead and rehash it. Everybody is searching for, I need one or maybe two of these guys to make my lineup work. So, of course, typical caveats, right, Neil? Like, depends on your lineup. Like, we get all that, right? Like, if you're playing Mac Jones, Parker Washington, right? If you're playing Justin Herbert, whatever. But if we had to pick, right, you got a gun to your head and somebody says, here's, like, you got to play this guy in your single entry main lineup. How are you picking? What's your exposure looking like to these value wide receivers? I'll let you kind of. I don't want to cut somebody off because he's 4,300. Like, if that's your favorite play, that's your favorite play. But let's rank some of these guys.
Yeah, I would probably actually rank Jalen McMillan number one now that he's active. Again, had really strong usage in week 8. He missed week 9. But week 8, he saw, I want to say, 7 targets on over 80% route participation. Seemed to be kind of a focal point for them. Of course, I played a ton of him, and he really disappointed in that game. But I still think probably Jalen McMillan is my number one if you're going. And I'm thinking like sub 4,500. So I'm not including like DeAndre Hopkins here. Yep. He would be the best. But yeah, Jalen McMillan probably number one for me, followed by Adonai Mitchell. After those two, it's probably Sterling Shepard for me. Noah Brown probably right there. Actually, maybe even Noah Brown ahead of Sterling Shepard. They're kind of neck and neck for me. Could go to Mac Hollins. I'm not super excited about it, but it's a really depleted wide receiver core for the Bills, and it's a great matchup. So I think Mac Hollins at 3,300 is pretty playable. Pop Douglas, really great target share for Pop Douglas in recent weeks. So I think he looks fine at 4,500. Ray is still like, we haven't played Ray in weeks at this point, Ray McLeod, but still like, I don't know, early in the year he had awesome usage. That has not been as awesome recently, but low enough price that I would consider him. Where's Juwan Jennings in terms of price? I think he's too expensive for what I'm doing.
Yeah, 51 on DraftKings.
Ricky Pearsall, I would say, is like playable. Actually, I want to look up his usage because I mean we get McCaffrey,
and
probably
Jennings
cut him too much. Yeah, Jennings back is the big one. So probably going to see a little bit of a decline in usage, but I would still think, I don't know, what do you think Pearsall's use? Like, I'm guessing like 50% route participation, but
I think, yeah, that's a good number. I think because I think Juwan is clearly higher on the pecking order, but in 3 wide receiver sets, Pearsall is definitely going to play.
Yep. So yeah, I'd say those are the ones that kind of stand out to me. Do you like any? How do you rank your cheap wide receivers?
I think I'm gonna go AD Mitchell, number 1. Oof. When he's the confirmed number 1, and then I struggle after, I think that's what you should take away from this. We're giving you a top 5-ish or a top, kind of a ranking, but it's very, very difficult. I'm gonna go AD Mitchell, Parker Washington as my top 2. Noah Brown is probably a very close third, if not second. Certainly, again, I know I just said typical caveats, and now I'm going to put the caveat in. But if you're playing that game, the Steelers game, like I really, you could play Mitchell or Parker Washington, I think, in some stacks that don't involve their game, where maybe there's not a value option. But I think Noah Brown is a really like critical piece almost if you're kind of stacking that Washington game up. I want to shout. So those would be my top guys for sure. I would just really struggle with like just about any of the rest of these guys, if I'm being totally honest. I wanted to even like shout like Troy Franklin coming into the week, but he's even 4,000, which is like, I know not a big deal, but he's getting a bunch of shot plays for the Broncos. Troy Franklin is, I feel like eventually he's going to catch one. But we've been saying that since June, and he never caught one even in camp, I don't think. But the Broncos are like mildly interesting, I think, as value options. And then I wanted to also shout, we talked about Hunter Henry with the Patriots. I just want to shout Kendrick Bourne at 3,200, I believe 78% of the snaps last week on offense, 6 targets. So nothing special. I just kind of think there's not really much talent in that, and the wide receiver room. Pop is definitely kind of the one, but he's like he's like Wandale, right? It's like when Wandale's the number one. I think Kendrick Bourne could be like the Darius Slayton in that type of a situation where I kind of think they're going to lose. I kind of think they're going to give up some points. We get a little elevated target share possibly from Kendrick Bourne. Terrible matchup, brutal matchup, but who isn't here, right? Like I'm talking about Parker Washington against the Vikings. It's not much better. So I think I put Kendrick Bourne kind of in at the back end of my top five. Chris asked about Mike Williams. Is Mike Williams going to get to play today? And Jonathan Mingo also was discussed. Two guys who were traded at the deadline on new teams. Are you playing either of those two?
No, negative interest in either of them for me today. I think it's a little bit too thin. Like Mike Williams, even if he plays, probably is not playing a full-time role. So yeah, it's a fine matchup. Maybe he comes in as like just shocks the world in his first game on a new team without Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think I'm playing that narrative today. And then who was the other one you mentioned? I think somebody else. Mingo. Cooper Rush is the quarterback. They still have several receivers ahead of him. I don't know if they're going to like bring in Jonathan Mingo and prioritize him. I don't think he's a very good wide receiver. So yeah, I'm not playing Mingo today. I do want to shout out people in chat bringing up Curtis Samuel. And I see TJ ranked him among his. Curtis Samuel actually does look pretty strong to me. I didn't think he was going to play today. I thought he was going to be out. So I had not given a ton of thought to Curtis Samuel, but now looks like he's playing. All the other receivers that are out, and he's 3,300. So, yeah, he would be right there with Matt Collins for me as like he's probably the best receiver. After Khalil Shakir, right? Do they have any other receivers ahead of? He's probably the second best receiver on the Bills now. So, yeah, I think Curtis Samuel looks pretty good. That's a good shout out.
I think so too. And I've notably been very, very wrong about Curtis Samuel at every step. Every time I think he's going to have a bad season or a bad game, it's like, oh, look, 12 touchdowns from Curtis Samuel this year, and he's playing running, but he's like baby Debo. And I'm like, oh, so maybe this guy is good. And then they trade him to the Bills. I'm like, oh, man, this seems like a really good spot for Curtis Samuel with his old offensive coordinator and the Buffalo Bills. And then he buried behind Mac Hollins. I'm like, I don't really get it, but again, we got to take some uncomfortable shots. And if you can give me an uncomfortable shot against the Indianapolis Colts with Josh Allen and the two best wide receivers on the team, Sands, Khalil Shakir out. Yeah, I'm totally in. I agree with TJ and your take on Curtis Samuel. That game has become, again, like a pretty fun little game stack. That's been kind of a foundation of my single entry team is that game, because like I said, it's just so I don't need that game to score 75 points. To score a bunch of fantasy points, because I know where the ball's going, right? I know where the ball's going. That's my segue into, I want to talk about running backs, because the Colts running back in that game that I think is pretty appealing. You talked about a tough matchup with the Buffalo Bills. Jonathan Taylor might be the only Colt that doesn't have a totally brutal matchup in that game. Devon Achane, not saying Jonathan Taylor and the Colts are the Dolphins, but popped off again against the Bills. It just every wash, rinse, repeat apparently with running backs. Joe Flacco really boosts his potential target earning ability in the passing game, which he might need here against the Bills. Jonathan Taylor is like my kind of standout tournament running back, but we should discuss, some of these popular guys. We talked about Aaron Jones. What are you doing with Christian McCaffrey? What are you doing with Alvin Kamara? Let's break down some of these expensive running backs that we're using all this crappy value or we're discussing all the crappy value to get these guys in.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, I think I'm just eating it. Like around a third of the field is going to play him. I'm probably going to be right there with the field on Aaron Jones. The value is just too good. Alvin Kamara to me is a little bit easier to not like full fade, but I think I want to get away from it at 8,100. It is kind of insane how good he's been. Like even without scoring a touchdown, he just absolutely demolished the Panthers, but most teams should be able to demolish the Panthers. So I'm not reading too much into that. The usage is too good to like comfortably fade him, but I think I'm going to fade him anyway and just kind of hope for the best with Alvin Kamara, because the price tag is high enough. He really does need to put up a score to get there. Bijan, actually the ownership has come closer now between Kamara and Bijan. I was planning on just playing more of Bijan and less of Alvin Kamara. Now they have about the same ownership. Still, I think it's fine. Lower 20s in terms of ownership feels about right. Bijan's role has been really awesome in recent weeks. He's kind of, can get there through the air or on the ground. So I think a lot of positives for Bijan. But I think the ownership is kind of right where it should be. Breece Hall, kind of similar, 20% projected ownership. I actually think I might like that better because he's getting lower ownership. Pretty nice matchup with the Cardinals. Obviously, you have Braylon Allen lurking, but still looks, fine at 20%. Jonathan Taylor, like you said, awesome role. Like, it's actually a good matchup for running backs against the Bills this year. 20% ownership looks about right. I don't think that I'm trying to get too far away from that. So a lot of these are plays that I'm just kind of eating the ownership. I'd say Kamara stands out as the one that, because of his price tag and because of some of the pivots in that range, I'm probably going to be more often making the pivot to McCaffrey. Again, I think McCaffrey, we don't know what the role is going to look like, but I think it's going to look good enough for his talent to get there. And he's so involved in the passing game that I think could just rack up, five receptions. So if McCaffrey is going to go lower owned than the rest of this group, I think I'd lean on McCaffrey a little bit. Saquon Barkley, again, he's 8,300. I guess he's in double digit ownership now, so that's been kind of all over the place. But I still think Saquon Barkley, I mean, he's been so good, and this is such a nice matchup. It's hard not to get excited about it. So if I can fit Saquon Barkley into my lineup, I'm going to force him into some of my lineups. And I think probably more than the 10% that the field is getting to. So I'm mostly just touching on the expensive running backs for now. How are you kind of ranking the more expensive running backs?
Yeah, it's tough. I think they're all pretty strong. What I will say, again, let's set aside Aaron Jones. Here's the top running backs from an ownership perspective right now. In lineup HQ, Alvin Kamara, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor. Scroll down a little bit to get to Christian McCaffrey. So I'll just put those guys in kind of in order. I think it's actually Jonathan Taylor number one for me. So this is ownership included, right? So this is not just my points projection. Okay. I don't do our projections. You guys can go look at the projections team. They're better at it than I am. Factoring in ownership, I think I'm going to put Jonathan Taylor number one. I think I'm still going to put Bijan number two over Christian McCaffrey, but that's where it would become close. Thank you, TJ. That's where it would become close between Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson. I do have them ahead of Alvin Kamara. I understand why people would play Alvin Kamara. It's just so last week. Now, granted, the Giants are not making this look any better, but like everybody runs over the Panthers, okay? And the Saints do have a decent running game. It's not the world's best matchup. He does need to score touchdowns to like break. I know he didn't last week, right? But like, so this all sounds counterintuitive. But generally speaking, at 8,100, you need to score some touchdowns, even when you're Alvin Kamara catching passes to break a slate. I don't really want to put my faith in MVS, Mason Tipton, Juwan Johnson offense to score a bunch of touchdowns. Whereas, right, the opposite side is the Falcons are facing them, probably going to score a bunch of touchdowns. The 49ers are always a good bet to score a bunch of touchdowns. I know Joe Flacco sucked last week and it's not a great matchup, but the Colts generally with Flacco have been a better bet to score. So I'm just leaning into those guys, right? Aaron Jones, of course, with the Vikings. So Kamara's kind of at the back end of that list for me. And so I would put Breece, so then Breece fourth, right? If we're kind of doing a top five of our expensive running backs, I would put Breece fourth, Kamara fifth behind the other big three. What about you?
Yep. How am I ranking them? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So we're not including Aaron Jones in this expensive.
Aaron Jones. Let's just assume Aaron Jones is number one for everybody because I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. TJ, can you sort by salary here? Is that possible? I actually don't know if that's possible. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Other Eric in the chat. CMC is fine. There you go. CMC is. I'll just add to your take. I'm not as bullish maybe as some people are in terms of CMC. What full force, whatever the hell that means. But like full force CMC is every snap. I think that it's important context. Like I don't care if he's full force. Like just be like 70% CMC is better than 99. It's better than just about every running back on this whole slate.
Yeah, exactly right. Man, I'm wondering.
Saquon. I totally forgot Saquon. He might be number one for me. I can't believe I slipped on him. He's further down the ownership list. That's why I missed him.
I was just going to say I might rank them in reverse order of ownership. So Saquon number one, McCaffrey number two for me actually. So that's where I'm willing to make the bet on it, even if because he could get there on 50% of the snaps. Obviously I wouldn't play him at all if I knew who was going to play 50% of the snaps, but I think the range of outcomes goes up to 90%. So I think I do like McCaffrey at 13%, just given like if he is full time, he's $1,000, $1,500 too cheap. So for me, it would be probably Saquon number 1, McCaffrey number 2. Yeah, I think I'm exactly reverse order of ownership. Saquon number 1, McCaffrey number 2, Breece Hall number 3, Bijan number 4, Kamara number 5 for me.
I like it. Let's hit some questions, and then I just want to talk about kind of some stats, wide receivers again to kind of polish up the slate. And of course, like I said, keep your questions coming if you have more. This is a difficult slate to figure out. Okay, so please bring any questions that you guys might have. Here's a good one from Mal. Debo and Kincaid. Oh, interesting. So which 49er and which Bill? Perfect into our play the guys from the offenses that are going to score a bunch of points. But which side do you prefer, Debo with Kincaid or Shakir with Kittle?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I like both of those quite a bit. I think I would go with the Debo Kincaid side of it.
Me too.
Yeah,
I think so too. I just think when I think about now, Kittle is clearly the tight end that could just absolutely destroy the slate. But when I combine like the potential like slate breaking ability, right? Like if I average the slate breakingness of both parties, I think the Debo side's just a little bit better because maybe Shakir will do it today, right? But he's never done like it's just not what he's like souped up Wandale, right? Like he's a much better, more explosive version of Wandale, but he's still kind of just that traditional slot type guy. Whereas we know what Debo could do. Like, I mean, if CMC is limited at all, Debo could benefit from that as well.
And a great matchup for Kincaid. And we haven't really seen it from Kincaid as, from what I recall. I can't remember him having a great game this year, but like, again, I think that he's at some point we should see some positive regression for Kincaid. And this is a best possible matchup to potentially see it. So I think he looks pretty strong.
Let's see here. That was that question. We got a Fire Martinez. I'm so sorry. A Saints fan going to the Saints game today. Enjoy and make the best out of it. Yeah,
we're cheering for our fantasy guys like Kamara and Tatum, and as a fellow Saints fan, we're going to cheer for them to lose. I'm kind of excited to see how they play with the new coach today, but I did actually bet on the Falcons, and we're all aboard the tank for Shadur Sanders train.
Shadur, huh? The Shadur is the guy. We don't got to get into the NFL draft takes. You'll have me rambling even more than I already do.
I'm just sad that Kendre Miller isn't active. That he was put on IR because I would be just ready for the new coach to play Kendre Miller for 20 rushes this game. That would be ideal. I would love that so much.
This slate would be so different if on his way out before getting fired, Dennis Allen didn't rage put Kendre Miller on. The other coaches are like, he's not even hurt. Well, why did he go on IR? And the guy hates Kendre so much, he put him on injured reserve before that was his last, right? Like they may, destroy their office, right? Or get some, talk crap about their boss. No, he wanted to make sure Kendre Miller did not play football was his last power move before he got absolutely insane. This is a funny name. Apologies. Boobletown Bobby. I had to say it. About J.K. Dobbins, a running back that we have not mentioned today. You playing any J.K. Dobbins? Gus Edwards, I believe, is back, right? I don't think that should matter, but just wanted to note it for him. A not super great price, but again, the game script should be pretty good against Tennessee.
Yeah, lower ownership than I was anticipating for J.K. Dobbins. So yeah, I think he fits into that bucket, the very large bucket of he's fine today. Like the ownership looks about right, maybe even a little bit light. So I think 7% ownership, given the usage he's had, I don't really think that we like lose much going from Kamani Vidal to Gus Edwards as the other running back there. I don't think they're super excited to play Gus Edwards, given what he's shown so far this year. So yeah, I think that the usage is going to be really strong. Tough matchup, obviously, with Tennessee. I don't think like L'Jarius Sneed being out, I don't know that really helps him all that much. But yeah, I think I think he looks fine at 7,200.
Danny Dimes rushing touchdown. It's not over yet, Giants fans. It's not over yet.
Neighbors is back, so
Neighbors is fine. Yes. Here's another one. Fire Martinez is getting in his hot takes before he heads off to watch the Saints lose. Rico Dowdle, another. I don't even know if he's in the fine bucket, but Ezekiel Elliott, right, has just decided he doesn't want to play football anymore, or I don't know what's going on with Zeke, and Dowdle had a really big game in his first Zeke, stealing just a couple of touches or whatever. They're going to be playing from behind. He's probably going to catch some passes from Cooper Rush. But what about Rico Dowdle? I do think the role is as good as anybody's. It's just the Cooper Rush offense in a not so great spot. What are you doing with Dowdle?
Yeah, I think I would put him in the fine bucket. So yeah, he's
filling up. The bucket's starting to overflow.
over the past 3 games, 37 carries. So he's getting about 13, a little bit under 13 carries per game on average over the past 3. Also 14 targets, so just under 5 targets per game. And the coach speak continues to be really promising. They keep on saying, and they've been saying it basically all year, like, oh, we really need to get Rico Dowdle. We need to get the run game going. And then they'll say that and then run it 5 times the next game. But maybe deep down, they'll figure they really want to run the ball more. Maybe they will at some point. And it seems like he's gaining trust while Zeke and obviously Delvin Cook just losing all of the trust. Just they've looked so bad. So I'm a little bit hopeful that he does get that kind of like 15 to 18 carries per game going forward. And if he can continue to see nearly 5 targets per game, I'll take it. So at 6,100, I don't love it. Like, it's not a great matchup with the Eagles, but it's fine, I think. So yeah, I think he's an okay play.
I'm not going to be able
the
to
word of the day. The word of the day
for like until next week. But it's true. I think it's true. I think Dowdle makes some sense as a bring back to any Eagle stuff you might want to do. Just like if they do happen to, if he happens to pop a run or something and get the Cowboys on the board in the first half, and then I think he's going to catch a bunch of passes in the second half if game script goes according to how we think it's going to go, with the Eagles really running or really scoring, I should say. Willis asks $3,400 left for a wide receiver. I think AD Mitchell is both of our guy there with the Colts. Let's see. Oh man, the chat is definitely on fire.
Well, let me ask chat something. Are any of you watching the game in Germany? Because I'm seeing people joking about, or I don't know if people are joking about Chuba being seriously hurt, but Chuba might be seriously hurt. So if anybody's watching, let us know how serious does it look.
Yeah. I hope not, because man, what an awesome hip drop on he's been absolutely amazing and just got paid. Well, at least he got paid. Shouts to him for getting the bag before, if it was a potential injury. There was another question that I just wanted to get to. Oh, Mac Hollins, our boy B Jenkins asked about Mac Hollins. I think he's last in both of our Bills pecking order, behind, of course, Kincaid, Shakir, and Curtis Samuel. Correct.
Yes. So I actually, Curtis Samuel he's the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it's kind of interesting. Like he was pretty good last year. I'm at least hopeful that but the question there is, how much are they actually going to use him? Again, we thought like maybe he wasn't even going to be active, and then now he's active. So if he were fully healthy, I think it would be like, I'd be like really into low-owned Curtis Samuel. The only concern there being the injury, like how much does he actually play? But I still think he's a kind of a fun, I think he's right. He's actually right there with me with Matt Collins, maybe probably ahead of Matt Collins. Yeah. Because if he is healthy, like I think he would be a phenomenal play in this spot. So I kind of like Curtis Samuel. We're getting Chris says that he walked off by himself, so probably fine, hopefully.
Ooh, okay, hopefully, yeah. It's never over necessarily when that happens, but could certainly be work. Can you imagine drafting Jonathan Brooks over Hubbard in best ball? I can. I have huge Chuba bags, so I want to be happy about that. But I also did not fade Jonathan Brooks, and buddy, did not expect double-digit weeks of absences from Jonathan Brooks. Arson, good question as we wind down here. Rankings of let's just do like favorite wide receivers on FanDuel. So that could be a value guy, right? That could be who are you, number one priorities, FanDuel wide receivers, which we can also quickly touch on the Sunday Night Football game as a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, Nico Collins, people were asking about him earlier. I'm gonna like Nico Collins, assuming that he plays. I don't think that it's a sure thing that he does play. He's still questionable. They at one point really liked him, and then it was at one point announced that he was going to play, and then they had to. That was I want to say Rappaport had to walk that back. I'm not confident that he plays, but if he does play, I'm going to have a lot of interest in Nico Collins, and then Tank Dell will obviously look pretty good if if Nico Collins doesn't play, and he's going to play regardless. DeAndre Hopkins, only 6,000 on FanDuel, stands out as like a really strong value, just given how much usage he got last week, obviously in a much better offense than he has been in recent years. So yeah, DeAndre Hopkins looks pretty great as a value. Khalil Shakir is very chalky, but I think it's deserved. I don't know that I want to be with the field at almost 30%, but I think he looks like a strong enough play. Calvin Ridley, I think, is playable on FanDuel. I'm not even playing him on DraftKings, but at 5,800 on FanDuel, I think that he is a reasonable play at, fine, kind of high owned, but looks pretty good. Obviously, I always love Justin Jefferson. He's my favorite pay up option. He is the highest projected wide receiver on the slate by a country mile. So yeah, Justin Jefferson 9,500 looks pretty good, because it's like CeeDee Lamb now playing with Cooper Rush doesn't look nearly as good. Amon-Ra looks okay. Like I can go to Amon-Ra if you want to have a sweat in that night game. I think he looks like a totally fine play. Both of the Jets receivers, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, they're strong plays on both sites, I would say. Josh Downs looks good on both sites. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any others standing out for you on FanDuel?
Yeah, I'm going to toss. I agree with literally everybody that you just mentioned. I actually think, I think we talked about this, but the Sunday night game, it always tends to stand out because we don't get to play it on DraftKings.
Yeah,
but
true.
Tonight in particular, it really, really stands out. I think both defenses set up to force the other team to pass, and neither team really wants to do that so much, which is crazy for the Texans. But again, assuming Nico is healthy, I think Nico and Tank look awesome. Both look really good against the Lions, and Amon-Ra looks awesome. Little JMO narrative street, I guess maybe I could get behind as well if you really want to get crazy with the Lions. But I really like the wide receivers in that game on FanDuel. And then I want to toss George Pickens. Again, we talked about him a little bit earlier, but with Russ in there, I'm pretty darn excited for George Pickens and a pretty solid matchup. Again, no Marshawn Lattimore yet for Washington. And then I just wanted to quickly touch on DeAndre Hopkins. We should have probably discussed before we give our kind of flag plants and bring in the crunch time crew. I'm not very high on DeAndre Hopkins today. I get it. I get the price looks good. The usage has been good. It's still an aging DeAndre Hopkins on a Chiefs offense that we're not exactly like clamoring over in a not so great spot against the Broncos defense. Again, dare I say, it's fine. But at his ownership, I don't want to play the chalkiest player who's fine. There's a lot of fine plays on this slate, as we've discussed for an hour and 15 minutes. Everybody is fine. I don't want to play the highest owned guy in like a not so great spot who's fine. I get it, right? I get the Chiefs. I get, DeAndre Hopkins, the targets, 2 touchdowns less. I get it. But I would just rather lean away from DeAndre Hopkins on both sides into some lesser ownership at wide receiver.
I go back and forth on it because I'm sort of with you in the sense that he's getting a lot of ownership. They're playing against the Broncos. We have a 1 game sample where he looked really good, and even there, he wasn't like really he wasn't running 90% of the routes. Still, it felt like a little bit of a fluky game, and it was a much better matchup. So it's like a much worse matchup. The usage wasn't really that awesome. But at the same time, it's like, well, DeAndre Hopkins with Patrick Mahomes at 5,300 on a slate with no value also is like, that seems pretty reasonable to me. So I think I eat it. I don't think I'm going like over the field, but I think the field getting to like 20% on DraftKings, actually even lower ownership on FanDuel, to me strikes me as like a reasonable amount of ownership for DeAndre Hopkins. But I think that makes sense. If you want to fade him, like you can poke so many holes in it. I think that that's a reasonable take. If you're like building one single entry lineup, leaving him out totally makes sense.
So we're pretty much on the same page with that one. Let's get our flag plants as TJ shows here. Make sure you smash that like button before the crunch time. We bring in the crunch time crew. Said got to give our what's going to win tournaments today. I'll kick it off, Neil, just so you don't steal mine. I don't think you're going to steal this one anyway. But a lot of ownership going to the Colts wide receivers, rightfully so, without Michael Pittman and with Joe Flacco. But I think the best matchup on the Indianapolis Colts is Jonathan Taylor. I think that he's going to get fed. I think he's going to get a bunch of targets. I think they're going to try to, do the typical let's keep the Bills offense off the field and protect our all of that stuff. He's their best player. Jonathan Taylor is on their offense, especially without Michael Pittman. I think they feed him. And if they can hang in this game at all, I think it's going to be because of him, not necessarily because of Joe Flacco and the passing game. And Jonathan Taylor's not like going completely unowned, but he's lesser owned than a lot of the other top running backs on this slate. And you can sign me up for that with a little bit of leverage off of his teammate wide receivers. So what are you adding to our smash flag plant lineup today?
So this is a like, I'm kind of like reaching to find plays that I like. But one thing that I think is interesting is a Josh Allen stack. So we can do a game stack there with Josh Allen as the pay up quarterback. And I know you've mentioned vomit stacks, and I'll be playing a lot of vomit stacks also. But I also think like the Josh Allen going completely unowned because he's so expensive and we don't have much value, like gonna get overlooked due to the price. All right, TJ's with me. And a lot of different ways that we can run it. You can run it with Dalton Kincaid. I like Khalil Shakir. Now we have Curtis Samuel as an option, or Mac Hollins. So I think there's a lot of different ways to run it. I think that there's just potential there for 5 touchdowns for Josh Allen, 6 touchdowns, whatever, in a great matchup. So that's the one that I'm going to be forcing into some of my lineups.
Bills Colts game. We'll all be tuned into that one, it appears, for hopefully fantasy fireworks. And let's go ahead and bring the crunch time crew in to wrap up our combo flag plants before we let them take you guys up to lock. All right, guys. You got to help us out here. We declared every player that's playing today for the last hour and 15 minutes as fine. And we barely flag planted anyone, and we really just dunked on every possible good play. So, Kristi, help us out, please. What's actually exciting about this slate so Neil and I can stop calling everything? It's fine. He's fine.
Well, one of the guys that I really like to start the week, and it looks like his ownership is a little bit lower than I expected, but I'm really in on Justin Jefferson today in that Minnesota offense, and I see him at like 12% ownership or so on DK right now. So really excites me against the Jags. That's one of my favorite plays on the slate. And also throw DJ Moore in the Bears game. I think he's an interesting play too, but I'm all in on Jefferson today.
Brit.
All right, I got 2 for you. The chalk defense always hits, right? So the Bears, it's not happening this week because we're loading up on Ramondre Stevenson against them as an ultimate leverage play when everyone's on the Bears defense. And I'm going to throw in, I cannot believe my eyes that Deebo Samuel is 5% owned, and when Brock Purdy's the highest, I think that's wrong. But Deebo Samuel, if everyone's playing George Kittle, who I like, and the other wide receiver there, either one of them, Deebo Samuel, the slate breaker at 5% owned is unimaginable. I can't believe that.
All right, I'm getting a lot more excited now. Justin Jefferson, Deebo Samuel, some leverage with Ramondre Stevenson. I'm getting more excited. Chief, are you going to bring it home, or are you going to bring me back down to fine levels?
I just think let's not outsmart ourselves. The Jaguars have been one of the worst defenses in football. Play the Vikings. I mean, Josh Allen's going in to see the Colts today with a limited receiver core, but he's proven he's going to get it done every week. Like, you know, when I started the season, I thought his passing game was going to be very limited, and lo and behold, he's pretty much 230 plus every week. Like, it doesn't matter who's out there, he's getting it done. And then I did hear you guys talk about Hopkins when I came in the room. I think Hopkins is, I mean, he's the number one guy. He's, you know, Rashee Rice light, or more than light, if you will. He's definitely got more experience than him over the years and can just set these defenders up. Just from a real life perspective, like, he's still unguardable, like, in the NFL. So at 5,300, if we told you DeAndre Hopkins was 5,300 paired up with the best quarterback in football, I think we'd all be playing him. And he's absolutely paired up with the best quarterback in football. Last but not least, my flag plant. This is my real flag plant here. Hottest offense in football has probably been the Atlanta Falcons that nobody's talking about. And they're getting a matchup with the Saints today. And Kirk Cousins just throwing the ball all over the place. And we just don't want to play this offense. I'm going in on the Falcons.
London or Mooney or Pitts?
All of them. Okay. If I had to pick one, my guy's been Darnell Mooney all year. Now the price is caught up to Drake London. So, I mean, London's probably the guy, which means Pitts is going to go for 880 and 2 touchdowns today.
I think wasn't that what happened when he had his last big game? We came on here, and I think I scolded Neil for even mentioning Kyle Pitts, and then
That's right.
Chief, you brought him up during this segment, and he went for two touchdowns.
Yep.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here. These three got you headed up to lock. I do just want to, if there's anybody in Oklahoma City, I'm in town. We can go grab a beer this afternoon and watch some football. We'll see you guys next weekend. Peace.
Yes.
All right. Thanks to everyone from the previous shows, both the 9:30 show and that one, for filling in. We're here to bring you up to lock. I'm Brit Devine, here with my man Chief, here with Kristi. We're running a little bit behind, guys, so we're going to skip the introductions. I feel like we did that. I just want to get into this on the slate here. So let's just jump right into quarterback. I've got SimLabs pulled up here. We can kind of see what you can get leverage on, what the ownership's going to be like, and stuff like that. I'm going to give my cash takes. I'm going to let the other two talk whatever they want. Quarterback, DraftKings cash games. There's basically three I'm looking at. It would be the three highest projected owned players here. Brock Purdy, to me, is the easiest cash game pick we've had in weeks, with Christian McCaffrey back. This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who let the absolutely horrible Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense go nuclear last week. Why do we not want to play Brock Purdy as our quarterback? The other two would be Sam Darnold or Aaron Rodgers. So that's basically cash on FanDuel. Aaron Rodgers looks really nice at just 7,100. A little bit tougher to get to some of the other guys over there. With that said, Kristi, sometimes you like to piggyback on my cash stuff. Give me your thoughts on that, and then hit me with the takes.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I like Purdy and Darnold a lot. I mentioned I really like Justin Jefferson this week, so Darnold is someone I have a lot of interest in. Rodgers also agree with too, just so cheap and has some good pass catchers there as well. On the tournament side, and I heard Neil mention this too, but I think Josh Allen makes for a great tournament play. You know, there's a lot of interest in Shakir, Kincaid, some of those pass catching options. So I think Josh Allen makes a ton of sense. So I think that's a great play. Also, Jaden Daniels, I mean, just keeps getting it done. Ton of upside there. So he's another guy that I have a lot of interest in. And then I'd also throw a guy that I don't play a ton, but I think, you know, just the price is down there really on both sites. I think you could throw Mahomes in the conversation. Hopkins is checking in at one of the chalkier plays on both sites. So I certainly don't mind that this week, but that's kind of my quarterback pool. But I do like Darnold and Purdy quite a bit at the top, and probably Daniels and Allen for tournaments.
All right. I have three tournament teams on DraftKings. I've got a Purdy team, an Allen team, and an Aaron Rodgers team. That's what I'm looking at personally. Let's go to Chief. What are you looking at the quarterback position?
I mean, I love Josh Allen today against Indy. Kirk Cousins against New Orleans. Also going to have some of Derek Carr as well, because I think if Atlanta, if for some reason gets out ahead in this game, I know Carr seems to have limited name value options today, but he's going to have to throw the ball if they want to be competitive. Maybe switching coaches does a little something for this offense. I don't want to bury the lead there. Like Dennis Allen being out of this coaching situation could actually help this team, galvanize them a little bit, if you will. Obviously, Sam Darnold against Jacksonville. We've just seen this defense get shredded through the air, so definitely want to include him. And then Patrick Mahomes, I don't feel like we've played Patrick Mahomes a lot this season, but if I'm going to be playing Hopkins, I'm definitely going to be playing Mahomes and pairing him up with his two main guys.
Yeah, him and Kelsey. I mean, that's the offense along with Kareem Hunt plunging along for 4 or 5 yards every single time and getting in the end zone. I mean, it's very condensed passing option with the Chiefs right now. I actually like, just looking at this, I like your Derek Carr. Like, I would much rather play Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield than some of these guys in the mid tier, like a Will Levis or a Nix or even like a Caleb Williams, somebody like that. I like the bottom tier here, and especially Baker. Baker gets it done each and every week. And if I think San Francisco, the offensive death machine, right? This is what they were last year, right? They're off the bye. They crush. They go on nuclear runs to end the season. This is the start of it with Christian McCaffrey back. So everyone's playing Brock Purdy. I mean, you could just play Baker Mayfield, pick one of his receiving options, maybe two of them, and then run it back with my preference would be Deebo Samuel on that one. So I kind of like dumpster diving down here towards the bottom. All right, let's go to running back real quick. My cash game thoughts. All right, so Alvin Kamara, yes, definitely playing him. I think he's easily attainable on both sites. How do you not want that workload with almost everybody else out from New Orleans that matters? Going to be wanting to be playing him. I think Aaron Jones also very attainable on both sites. Another guy with a big workload. We saw Cam Akers sneak in a little bit last week, but Aaron Jones, if there's garbage time, should be in there for some closeout. In the receiving game, I'm expecting 20 plus touches from him. He looks like someone you might want as well. After that, you have to make a couple of difficult decisions, a little bit more, maybe even on both sides. So you can't fit like them and Bijan and Breece Hall or a Jonathan Taylor, and you almost have to go down to the next tier of running backs, of which my favorite would probably be a James Conner, followed by a DeAndre Swift in the next tier. I think you could probably substitute. There's all this talk, right, that CMC is going to get used. I forgot what they were saying last show, what it came out on. But at 8,000, I'm going to take a wait and see approach on him. That could come back to burn me. I think he's an excellent tournament play. But I'm not really playing, the Saquons, the Dobbins, the Cooks, these guys in cash. It's the known quantities: Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, then probably a James Conner or a DeAndre Swift for me in cash, avoiding the Austin Eckler for the most part. We saw his workload get split up a little bit more than I would like last week. And on a week I think is going to be reasonably low scoring, right? Because we don't have all the value we normally have. Anything can happen, but I want as many touches as I think I can possibly get at the running back position. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going to stick with the same format. Kristi, I'm going to go to you if you want to touch on cash, and then tell me what you're looking at. Give me some FanDuel takes too. I know you do a lot over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Aaron Jones makes a ton of sense. And, I have a lot of Justin Jefferson. And so on the teams that I don't have Jefferson, Jones is a primary play. Just getting a ton of touches, great matchup. So love that. Kamara, I think, is going to be very, very popular, but for good reason. They just don't have a lot in that offense on the receiving options. So Kamara, I think, is a great play. And then DeAndre Swift, you mentioned him for cash. I think he's great for cash or tournaments. Like him, I think he's a great match with the Bears defense. They're obviously one of the most popular defenses this week. So I love that quite a bit. A couple other guys I really, really like. Kareem Hunt is right in there. He's 6,600 on DraftKings. And I've got him actually tagged. I mean, he just gets a ton of usage in that offense, and he really hasn't seen a price increase. And so I like getting to him. So I think, he's a pivot from the James Conner, DeAndre Swift. And then when I'm paying up, Saquon Barkley, I mean, my goodness, he's just been a great tournament play really on both sites, and someone I have a lot of interest in. On the FanDuel side, I will say, value is a little bit harder to come by. Again, I really like Aaron Jones over there, but I think Rico Dowdle makes some sense over there, especially for the cash game side, just because he's very, very cheap. So I think that's a fine play. I think you could also throw in Najee Harris in there too, a little bit if you needed to save money. And Britt, I heard you mention Ramondre Stevenson, and I think that's a great play. I think the Patriots defense is sneaky, and I like pairing the two of those together. So like those guys a lot. I also heard the guys before kind of mentioned that Colts game a little bit too, and there's a lot of receivers that are popping there, but I think Jonathan Taylor is such an awesome play there. So I think he's a great tournament play, and someone that you really want to get exposure to. So yeah, those are some of the guys that I'm kind of looking at.
And my two favorite tournament plays are definitely Ramondre Stevenson, especially in DraftKings where everyone's using the Bears defense. Mm-hmm. And then the other is Najee Harris, who's not drawing much ownership against the team you want to run against now in Washington. And Najee, 3 straight 100-yard games, can get in the end zone, maybe catch a pass or two. He's going to need the 100 and the touchdown probably to make it work on DraftKings, but I think he's a pretty fine, to steal that from the last show, play over there. Chief, what are you looking at? Are you looking to spend up? What do you think of, our ownership? Jones, Kamara. I don't know how Kamara isn't the highest owned running back. I know his price is higher, but he should clearly be the highest owned running back. If I'm playing tournaments, I would be extremely overweight him today. What's your thoughts on him?
I definitely like Kamara. I mean, you got to spend up for him a lot. Most projection systems, really have him getting. The thing is, he's going to get the targets today. So even though they're going to be handing the ball off, you're almost projecting him like Le'Veon Bell from.
He's CMC from. He's like CMC and Le'Veon Bell right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get. I mean, I think I would assume his target floor today is 5. Do you guys think that's reasonable? Like in terms of targets, his floor is probably 5 today.
Targets probably higher.
Well, I just meant floor because like his ceiling for targets is probably like 10, 12. But I'm saying his floor is probably 5 to 6. His, as long as the game doesn't, and if the game gets out of hand, like maybe Atlanta goes up 14-0 early, then his floor probably raises another 3 targets, I would say.
I want the targets though. Targets are better than runs.
I understand. I'm just driving the point home that he's really like a top tier option. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like he's a top tier option today. I was actually pretty shocked, and I guess I shouldn't have been, on the Aaron Jones ownership because he really hasn't picked up a lot of ownership this season. But most people, I think, have figured out Jacksonville actually is pretty awful on defense right now. At 6,700, he's at 30%. Man, that's right on the edge of fading for me. It's just this defense is so bad. I think I still get him in. I've heard some Jonathan Taylor buzz. I actually like that call with Taylor 7,500 on DraftKings. And then I think, I didn't think this guy was going to be sneaky, but I think Pittsburgh's a better football team than most people give them credit for. I just think they don't look like a fun football team, so we don't want to roster them. But Najee Harris at 6,200, getting 7% ownership. I'm actually expecting Washington to lose today, and I'm expecting Pittsburgh to be in some scoring situations. And I think here's my hot take. I think Najee gets in the end zone twice this week. So I like him at 6,200. He's
on 2 of my 3 tournament teams, and I bet right before the show Steelers money line. So I'm definitely on board with you on that one, Chief. Kristi, anything pop into your head? What are we doing with Christian McCaffrey today, Kristi?
I do think you look at his price, especially on DraftKings, and I think it's worth a shot in tournaments. I really do because if he is fully healthy and is going to be playing a lot out there, we're going to wish we played him a lot more because he's going to be priced up quickly. So I think he's an awesome tournament play. I really do. And a little bit of leverage from some of the passing game, some of the Deebo Samuel, George Kittle plays like that. So I think it's great.
Yeah, Chief, if I've just said Alvin Kamara is CMC, what are you doing with Christian McCaffrey today? Do we expect how I definitely expect him to see him in all scoring situations. I expect him to be on the field in the, when they're in the red zone without question. For touchdowns, I expect him to be able to, if it's 3rd and 4, just add an element to their offense that they haven't had, where defenses now have to cover the running back for the shorter checkdowns and routes like that. 8,000. He could be 9,500 on DraftKings next week if he has a big game.
Yep.
Well, look, I'm not going to tell anyone to not play Christian McCaffrey. I'm not playing him this week. Now, I am taking a different approach this week, Britt. I'm going a little bit more single entry because I've got basketball practice today, and I don't want to, when I've got it like that, I just decided I don't want to be keeping up with a bunch of lineups. So I'm personally not playing him, but I do think the ownership on him, if I was mass multi-entering, I'd probably have him slightly above the field. I got a projection on about 12.5, pushing 13. I think 15 to 16 would still be a reasonable number for him. Let me take a look at it through the SimLabs here for you. So we have Alvin Kamara at 24% ownership, still one of the best optimal plays overall. He's $100 more than Christian McCaffrey this week. McCaffrey also skewing towards being a better optimal play than his projection. So with Kamara being clearly towards the top, if that ownership holds, would you play McCaffrey over Kamara straight up? Who's going to score more fantasy points in it? No. Kristi, Kamara's got the real workload. Like Christian McCaffrey is still a little bit uncertainty. We know Kamara's going to be out there probably 80% of the snaps today.
Kristi, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do. We know what Kamara is going to do. But again, just with the price point, I do think he's someone that you want to have exposure, especially if you have, if you're playing more than 3 to 5 lineups, you definitely want exposure.
Yeah, I have 3. I don't have any CMC,
and I can see that. Yeah, but I think
it's very tough on draft. I'm only playing the 3 DraftKings tournament teams. It's very tough on DraftKings to get the higher end running backs. You can afford 1 high price player in your lineups unless you completely butcher it with 2 3K-ish wide receivers, which is a very, 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 very risky way to make a tournament team. All right, let's go to wide receiver. Again, so cash, I'm going to give my thoughts on that. You're probably looking DeAndre Hopkins, like him quite a bit, specifically on DraftKings. I know Chief likes him. Not as high as ownership as I would expect, honestly, at 5,300. The Rashee Rice role. Rashee Rice is great in it. Juju Smith-Schuster is great in it. DeAndre Hopkins is great in it. Travis Kelce's great in it. Why do we not want to play him? He's certainly someone I want to play on both sites today. Your other options, you're probably playing, so include DeAndre Hopkins, you're probably playing at least 2, if not all 3 of these guys. Khalil Shakir from Buffalo and Josh Downs from Indianapolis. You can play all 3. You probably want to play at least 2 of those 3. You're probably going to need a cheaper wide receiver as well. We have players like a Noah Brown, a Donnie Mitchell, a Mac Hollins. There's a couple other cheap guys you might want to throw in. You got Juwan Jennings, who's 5,100, probably a little bit too high price to consider as a cheap play. But if you're looking for some cheaper options, those are some ones. I'm currently staring at Noah Brown on my own personal DraftKings cash game. He was a 2-unit bet for me on scores and odds on his yardage total. So he's someone I really like. If you're looking for a cheapish wide receiver. Just can't get to the high-end wide receivers. And, of course, Kristi, if I had to, I'd want Justin Jefferson. But that is a very tough thing to pull off on DraftKings this morning.
It is. On DraftKings, it really is. And I know, Britt, you mentioned Deebo Samuel just being a fantastic play. I mean, it's fantastic. 6,900 on DraftKings. Low ownership that we have projected. It'll be interesting to see where it comes in. But I've got Deebo, too, in DraftKings in my tournament lineups, and cash as well. Actually, I just think he's phenomenal.
He is like my last guy. He is the guy I want on my DraftKings cash team, but I can't make it work.
Britt, do you mind adjusting the screen share a little bit to show off the plays?
Oh yeah, no problem. Here, let's see. Boom. How's that?
Good, and even just a little scroll down to make them more.
Oh yeah, no problem, Mr.
There we go.
Awesome. No, it's perfect. Yeah, and you're exactly right. Justin Jefferson is really hard to get over in DraftKings. So I like getting more exposure probably to Deebo on this site. But you mentioned kind of some of the core plays, Josh Down, Shakir. Hopkins is a guy that I just think is a great core play. Great price on both sites. And like you said, he's just kind of the guy now with no Rice, playing a great role in that Kansas City offense. So I think he's someone you want to get. The cheap guys, I like your Noah Brown call. I think he's fantastic. He's cheap. He's good on both sites. I think Mitchell is a great cheap play too, and you're going to need a couple of those guys in there just to kind of make everything work and pay up for, if you're trying to get Kamara in and things like that. So I like that quite a bit too. I know Ladd McConkey is pretty popular too, and I think you can play him in cash. I think that's just fine. I do also would throw out a couple of the Jets receivers, Wilson and Adams. I think that makes sense, especially if you're looking to play Rodgers on tournaments. I like that quite a bit. George Pickens. I know we talked a little bit about that, and the guys were talking about that a little bit before the show. I think that's a good play. A tournament guy, not necessarily on DraftKings, but I like him over on FanDuel is Marvin Harrison. I know he's been very boom or bust, but when you get the boom part and getting someone to come back within that Jets offense, I think he's a really good play. I talked a little bit about DJ Moore, probably like him a little bit more on FanDuel as well, but I think he's a really good tournament play today. So those are a few of the guys that I'm looking at, but I would say, more Deebo Samuel for me on DraftKings, and Justin Jefferson is kind of a core play for me over on FanDuel.
All right, Will, I'm going to throw this to you with a different question to start off here. From doing all those years of those Millionaire Maker articles, the thing you always want to generally fade are the highly owned wide receivers. And you can see if I sort by the worst optimal wide receivers in large field tournaments, it's all the guys we just talked about as the best plays overall. Is there one of those? Let's say if you had to pick between Downs, Hopkins, Shakir didn't make this list. He's a little bit further down. These are the guys who the Sims are saying are the worst plays just because they're going to be overowned for the wide receiver, a volatile position. Which one of these guys would you be most looking to maybe take an underweight stance on?
Juwan Jennings.
Yep. I would just swap that to Deebo, right?
Yeah, because look, man, say what you want. And I know it's based on ownership, but Downs, Hopkins, and London are going to get their targets. Like that's really what it boils down for me. Like, which one of these guys could be on the outside looking in? Now, I know Drake London got hurt last week, but I don't expect him to come out here and get 3 and 4 targets. Like, this is a 10-target receiver. All these guys, Downs with no Pittman, with Flacco, has shown that he's close to a double-digit target receiver. We already know that Hopkins, what is this, his third week getting acclimated to the offense? Now, this is week 3, I think. We saw week 1, a few targets. Week 2, explosion. Week 3, I mean, it should be another big game from him in terms of opportunities. I'm not saying he's going to score 20 fantasy points, but the opportunities will be there. I don't think Jawan Jennings gets the same opportunities, even with McCaffrey possibly limited, Debo there, Kittle there, Ricky Pearsall's in the mix. So I think Jennings is the guy that's on the outside looking in for me.
Yeah, and I didn't even notice Debo is our best. Why do we have Debo at 1.9 ownership? That's definitely wrong. I think he was hovering around 5% earlier for most.
My bad. You can hit, bro. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Let me just see here. Hold on here. I gotta
because I do have a take at the wide receiver position that isn't going to be popular, and it could pay off.
What is that? Let's get into this. Debo's not going to be 2% on. He was 5% earlier. He's going to be higher than that, but Debo's definitely he's in 2 of my 3, if not 3 of my 3 DraftKings tournament teams right now. He's my guy for sure. Chief, let's get your thoughts on who you were talking about.
So it's an obvious play, but I think it's more about lineup construction on DraftKings than anything. I think the obvious tournament play is fade Kamara, play Justin Jefferson. And because that, like, what I'm saying is if people have Kamara, they're not playing Jefferson anyway.
Yeah.
So you're going to get, and I know Kamara isn't like 30% on, he's pushing 20. But I mean, when you look at Jefferson, because of the running back effect, like Justin Jefferson's getting really low ownership for a matchup with the Jaguars. Like if I was ever going to play him, this is the spot for him to go off for 10 catches, 150 and 2. Like this is it. So I'm just saying I'm willing to play some Jefferson without Kamara in some lineups and let that be my spin and spin down. When I say spin down, I'm saying get more than the 6K range.
Yeah, nobody is ever going to fault you for playing Justin Jefferson against the Jaguars. There's some disrespect from Doug Peterson this week on Sam Darnold. I think Darnold. I had Darnold passing overs on scores and odds. This could be a nuclear week for the entire.
In fact, I'm about to do that. Like that's going to be my main tournament team. I think I'm going to fade Kamara and play Jefferson in single entry. And if this pays off, I'm going to be close to the top. It's very risky, and I get it. But I'm just saying, I think that's an opportunity I'm exploring.
Yeah, I like that. Kristi, real quick, rank the cheapies on DraftKings for everybody. Let's start at, I think, 4,400 and below is when the players we want to technically play start from the cheap end. We've got Noah Brown's 4,300. We've got McMillan's 4,200. McLeod, Demario Douglas, Ricky Pearsall. And on down, maybe give me your top 3 cheap plays on DraftKings at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I would say Mitchell, Noah Brown, and Ricky Pearsall are probably 3 of my favorites. Pearsall more for tournaments, but I just think that's an interesting tournament play. But I really like Noah Brown and I really like Mitchell, are probably my 2 favorites over on DraftKings.
All right, I'm going to go to tight end, and we'll try to take some questions. Real quick, before we get to tight end, I want to tell you guys, you can get on RotoGrinders combo. DFS is all about value. It's the busiest time in the sports calendar. It's perfect time to sign up for RotoGrinders. For a limited time, you can get your first month of combo access for just $80. That's just $5 more than NBA Premium. Don't pass it up and get you access to SimLabs, Lineup HQ, everything, all the articles. I can go on and on. RotoGrinders Premium, an absolutely great product. And not just if I didn't work here, I would be having some RotoGrinders Premium as well. I'd be paying Dan the $80 a month for that. All right, let's go to tight end. For Will Dissly. No, this is Will Dissly's fake. Do not play. I am not on him. I'm anti Will Dissly. So I know he makes the rest of your teams look good on DraftKings. I understand it, but we've got Quentin Johnson back. We've got all the other tight ends back. We've got them heavily favored. He's going to need a touchdown. I mean, he legit on the low scoring week. This is why I don't like Mitchell as much as my cheap cash game wide receiver, because there's too much like 3 or 4 point outcomes, and I don't want that on my cash game team today. So Will Dissly is not someone I'm looking at. I'm going up to basically the next tier. The Hunter Henry, Taysom Hill, I think are much more stable options today on the cheap end for cash. I think if I was spending up, it would be certainly George Kittle on DraftKings and probably Cade Otton on FanDuel based on their salaries and where you can get everybody else today. Also like Travis Kelce. I was toying around. I have a Travis Kelce, George Kittle cash game team that I almost clicked in. I didn't like my wide receivers as much, but those guys they're like wide receiver 1s or 2s, and they're priced like wide receiver 2s and 3s on DraftKings today. Always tough to do that at the tight end position. But I would definitely, I think today, be picking between Hunter Henry or Taysom Hill as my tight end. And I wouldn't fault you for playing probably George Kittle on the high end over there. Kristi, what are you looking at overall today?
Yeah, I think there's some good tight ends here where, easily get a 2 tight end week, honestly, in my opinion, because there are a few good ones here. But yes, I agree. Cade Otton and George Kittle at the top, I think, are just great plays. I mean, they're really pretty good prices, and Cade Otton with his role in the Tampa Bay offense now is elite. So I like that. I think Cade Otton really makes sense as the cash game tight end over on FanDuel especially. But I agree, Hunter Henry, Taysom Hill over on DraftKings, it really allows you to pay up. I'm not on Dissly either, so completely agree with you on that. I will mention just for tournament on FanDuel, especially Sam Laporta is only $5,800, gets you exposure to the night game. I just think that's an interesting play over there. If you're looking just to get a little bit different at lower ownership, I'd maybe even throw Kyle Pitts in there. I know he's very volatile too, but I think that's an interesting tournament play. Over on FanDuel, he's $5,700 as well. So I think those are a couple options too that stood out as some good tournament plays. But I think at the top, there's some great options with Otton, Kittle, Hill, Kelce, and Henry kind of leading the way.
If pricing wasn't so tight on DraftKings, I would be all over these, 6,000 Kelce, Kittle. These guys are priced great. It's a tough week on DraftKings today.
It is.
Chief, what are we doing? Oh, mute, buddy. We always get you once every show on that.
Yeah, my bad. So here's the thing. I was expecting Otton to, be getting, 20-30% today, considering his output, but not only his output, the targets. He's basically become a number 1 wide receiver, and he's 5,500. I am shocked. So Cade Otton's my guy this week. I'm just going to plant my flag there. Now, I will have some Kyle Pitts because I like this Atlanta offense. But I was shocked that he wasn't getting more ownership. I couldn't believe it.
I'll tell you why. So all the receivers, now not Godwin or Evans, but they're back. And against Fred Warner, you generally don't want to play your tight end against Fred Warner. So that's what I would.
I don't care about that, Brit. Here's the thing. I think he is a favorite target of Baker Mayfield. Like, who cares about Fred Warner? If he gets 10 easy targets, I know they won't all be easy, but like he's going to catch some passes today. I get it. I'm just saying too much volume for me to be worried about. Fred.
All right, we're gonna get to some questions in just a second. I hope TJ, if you can post them in our show chat, that would be a lot easier for me, possibly, than trying to grab them off the stream myself. If you're not battling all of the spam bots, I'm going to grab a couple here quick. Any good cheap running backs? Single entry tournament, FanDuel 6,300. Kristi, you are the FanDuel wizard or wizardess, whatever you want to say on that. Let's find a cheap running back. It's probably Rico for you, right?
It's Rico. Yeah, I would say Rico. I think he's a really fine option actually, and he's really the best value probably. Eckler's 6,800, but yeah, Rico's probably the best under 63.
All right, AK Boy wants Najee Harris or Kareem Hunt for a DraftKings tournament today. So I'm on Najee personally. Hunt is just he's not explosive at all anymore. It's just volume, and there's no pass game work. So he has to get the touchdown, which seems pretty reasonable, and he has to get the 18 plus carries, which also seem reasonable. But if anything goes awry, I think I don't know. I just love Najee. I don't. Will, you're on that too, right?
I am on Najee for sure.
Especially at the owner. I think Najee's coming in like half the ownership, and I think they have very similar roles today. So I would take Najee. Do you have a take on that, Kristi?
I'm probably more on the Hunt side, just because he's getting 80% of the team's rushes, and they utilize him a lot. I know he maybe doesn't have quite the pep that he did earlier, but I do like Hunt, and I think he's still a reasonable price over on DraftKings.
All right, Kristi, I got a FanDuel single entry question for you. Price considered, rank Kamara, Jones, Swift, and Dobbins. This is basically the exact problem I had. One of those guys does not make your cash team. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, for me, it's Dobbins on the outs. I like Kamara, Jones, and Swift are probably my top three.
I would agree with that. Although I think I'm a little higher on Dobbins than the field, but price considered, I would play Swift over Dobbins today. Favorite cheap quarterback, FanDuel cash, probably Aaron. I don't like Aaron Rodgers, but he's 7,100. And if you play Aaron Rodgers and you play the Colts defense, you can pretty much get a very, very, very nice lineup on FanDuel today. Yep. That's what I've done, Kristi.
I couldn't agree more. Yep, that's exactly what I would say is Rodgers.
All right. Yeah, I don't love Rodgers. The next guy up would probably be, you got to go to Darnold at 7,800 for me to get really interested in somebody. And that's a pretty big price hike for $700 at quarterback. Will, I'm going to go to you. This is a question a lot of people have. DraftKings, your cheap wide receiver. We're going really cheap. We're going 3,300 and below. So you're basically in the Mac Hollins tier. He's probably the 3,300 guy. You've got Mitchell at 3,400. Curtis Samuel's 3,300. Who you want there? You want? Let's dice up the Bills receivers. I think I'd probably play Hollins over Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, Hollins is probably the guy because we've seen him get some real work, like in the regular floor of their offense. So I would say Hollins at 33. I think that's good because clearly he's not getting to Adonai Mitchell at that price.
Yeah, or at 3,400. Would you play Mitchell over either of the cheap Bills wide receivers?
Maybe because I think he's got big playability, but I think Hollins has a better quarterback.
All right, here's a tough one, I think, for both of you. Saquon or Justin Jefferson? Kristi?
Yeah, that is a tough one because I like them both, and they're both fantastic. I don't think you can make a wrong move here. I'm probably a little bit more overweight on Jefferson, but I do have exposure to both in tournaments.
I think both have blowout risks for concerns. Either way, this one's tough.
It's tough.
Will, who do you have there? I think I'd probably play Justin Jefferson, honestly.
Yeah. Jefferson against the Jags, man. Not going to overthink it.
Jonathan Taylor or Bijan Robinson FanDuel cash, Kristi. I'll throw mine in. That would be I'd take Bijan over Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I think I would too. I do like Taylor though for tournaments, but yeah, I like Bijan quite a bit.
All right, a couple of minutes left, guys. Please keep getting in your questions. David Montgomery or Darnell Mooney for a FanDuel tournament. Will, I'm going to put that to you.
Give me Mooney.
Probably Mooney.
Yeah.
Montgomery needs like 2 touchdowns now, right? Because he's like, it's like 12 carries, 60 yards. Where Mooney can get that. I mean, he can get this 100 and a touchdown on a single play. Maybe, well, not 100, but you know what I mean. I'd probably play Mooney on that one, Kristi. What about you?
Yep, I think I would too. I think I'd go with Mooney.
This one's pretty easy for me. Kittle or McBride straight up. Definitely George Kittle. Unmatched upside at the position without Brandon Ayuk. Not even a question. Him or Kelsey for sure over McBride for me today. Everybody agree on that one?
Absolutely.
Will, you on board?
Yep.
We're back with another one. Hunter Najee. I think we got that one. I think Chief and I had Najee. Kristi had Hunt. Does that go to DraftKings as well for you, Kristi? Would you prefer Kareem Hunt over Najee Harris?
No, I would say Najee.
All right, Kristi, you're in the FanDuel streets. We've got 5,200 or less. We're not playing Adonai Mitchell. Who you got at wide receiver? I have not delved that deep on FanDuel this week.
I haven't either. I haven't had to dip below that. I was just kind of looking on here too. I think you could maybe go, oh boy.
Curtis Samuel's 49. Mac Hollins is 51. I just go right to a Bills receiver.
Yeah, I think I would too. I mean, I think that's the logical choice. Yeah, 4,900 looks pretty enticing for Samuel.
Yeah, one of those two. Favorite running back 7,400 and below on FanDuel. Lots of FanDuel. Kristi, you're the queen over there. What do you got?
Yeah, so I think, this is where like Dobbins comes into play. I think he makes a really good play. Stevenson, Harris, Eckler. Yeah,
I think Dobbins and Najee for sure would be the two. And then remember Stevenson, I think more of a DraftKings play because you're battling against all the Bears teams in a tournament, would be my DraftKings preferred tournament option over there.
Yeah.
Anyone on Jameson Williams today? This is for FanDuel tournament, right? I mean, he's just doing all the things you shouldn't be doing. But are we playing him on our tournament teams today?
I mean, I think he's worth a flyer. I do. I mean, if you're building multiple lineups, I mean, 6,300, yeah, definitely take a shot.
All right, another FanDuel. They've come out on the FanDuel woodwork. So we're all playing Josh Downs. Would you go to a Tank Dell with Nico Collins? I don't know if we have an exact word that Nico Collins. I'm expecting Nico Collins to come out and play basically every snap until unless noted otherwise today. I think that sours me a little bit on a Tank Dell. What about you?
Yep, exactly. If Nico was out, I was going to say Tank would be just a phenomenal GPP play. He still could be, but yeah, I'd probably stick with Downs just with Nico most likely coming back.
Do you have to play someone from the night game on FanDuel? Definitely not. Specifically not today. I think everyone's priced pretty much appropriately.
Yep. The only guy that I would throw in there is Sam Laporta, just because I think his price is pretty interesting to me. So, but yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, definitely not today. So this is a DraftKings tournament, 2v2, Hunt and Devontae Adams or Stevenson and Garrett Wilson for a DraftKings tournament. So you're really pretty much just picking. I would definitely take Hunt and Adams.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Hunt's getting 20 carries a game right now.
Exactly.
But I do like Stevenson is just Stevenson's the ultimate leverage. I'm just knocking out the Bears defense teams. I absolutely love that.
Full disclosure, I ended up on my boy from Atlanta at tight end just because I'm playing Kirk Cousins. Just want to put that out. As much as I love Otten, I ended up with Kyle Pitts.
All right. Would you rather play Shakir and Downs, or would you rather play, let's say, A.D. Mitchell and Justin Jefferson?
I kind of like paying up for Jefferson. I do, especially at the lower ownership this week. So I think that's what I would do.
I like the mid tier personally. I think I guess here's my quick take. We've reached lock, and maybe I should have given this before, but I think there's like 6 or 7 of these like sub. I'll start at the Noah Brown tier, maybe even 4,400. There's like 10 reasonable guys you can play at 4,400 or below that in theory makes sense. There's usually not that many, but we don't love any of them this week.
Right.
I think the winning tournament team is going to have one of those, right? The question is, which one is it with one of the, let's say, Jets receivers plus up in salary, if that makes sense. I think that's, and then you mix in one of the Downs, Shakir, DeAndre Hopkins that also has a big game, right? Like, I think that's probably the combo that makes it today because the pricing's so tough. And the question is, which one of those 10 sub 4,400 wide receivers gets there? And then obviously Justin Jefferson makes the most sense out of all of those. Right. But I don't know. That's probably, I think, looking at my 3 teams, I think that is, or maybe the Deebo Samuel plus tier at wide receiver. That's how I have all of my teams. I have a cheapie in there, mixing and matching those with some of the higher end wide receivers, and then one in the mid tier instead of. And then if 2 of those guys get in there, right, then you can, if you have 2 sub 4,400 wide receivers, then you can get Kamara and Barkley, and maybe that's even the way. But then that's the very, very risky way to play. So someone's saying anytime you tout Justin Jefferson, he eats. I think we're all touting Justin Jefferson.
Absolutely. Right? I hope he does.
All right. I think that's going to about do it. There is a showdown tonight. You'll have Chief and TJ on for that. If you're looking for a bet real quick, let me see what the late games are. Scores and Odds has been having a tough time. Looks like the app's responding a little bit. So of the late games, I think the Lions -3.5. If you're looking for a side or total, I think that's good. And you can do the old Wong teaser on the Chargers and the Eagles, in my opinion, looks reasonably as well. Get that on DraftKings. Take your 6-point teaser on those two. Other than that, Will, Kristi, thanks for coming on again. Thanks to everybody else for doing their shows early. Make sure to tune in to the Showdown slate with Chief and TJ later. Other than that, hopefully you all do well today. Good luck, everybody. For Chief and Kristi, I'm Britt. Thanks for watching, and we out ya.